Hello, and welcome to episode 218 of Flix and the Six. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Costanzo, with me forever and always, the man, the myth, the Maudib, Alessandro Biolsi. Say hello, Al. Say
Bless
hello,
the
you
maker.
little mouse.
Oh, wow. You cut me off in the middle of it. Bless the maker and his water. Bless the coming and going of him. May his passage cleanse the world. May he keep the world for his people.
Sure. On this week's episode, we've got Oscars and Chimichangas, the Batman, and other musings, all before diving into our flick of the week, Dune Part 2. But first, Al, what are we drinking?
We're not drinking Industrial Arts Splice.
We sure aren't.
I don't know what happened with that, man.
One time I picked the beer, and you don't have it.
I don't know if that was about, like, at some point we were like, we'll just give up on that one. I don't know if someone accidentally drank it and I didn't realize it and I forgot to tell you.
Listen.
I don't know if it got moved.
In your defense, there's about 25 to 30 beers in the show fridge.
I do not have that many beers.
So I have a lot. So somebody's been drinking your show beers.
Which is possible. I mean, I have probably 15, I want to say.
Are we going to have to do a beer audit? I think we have to do a beer audit.
Probably.
Yeah, I just take them all out, take a picture, and you just put X's next to the ones you don't have.
Compare and contrast. But I do feel like, as I was just looking there, I think someone must have moved something somewhere. So it's possible it's in the secondary fridge, but I didn't think to look there.
You're telling me that the beer I picked was missing. There is another fridge, and you didn't look in it.
No, because I forget that fridge exists,
Weak
and I
sauce.
just remembered now because I can see it from where I'm sitting versus when I was standing by the other fridge. Because it's a wine fridge, but occasionally it becomes auxiliary beer space.
Fair. Occasionally, like in scenarios where the beer is missing now.
I truly don't believe I have it on the premises any further.
That's fair. I mean, it sounded so good, too.
I will see if I can acquire it again or if it was on off.
It was perfect for this because it was not Splice. It was
Spice.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we are drinking. It's a good thing we're coming back to the main show proper. We're going to have a Newburgh beer. We got Newburgh.
We might as well, right? It seems it's the way of things.
Plus, this one's fresh. It's only like a week and a half old.
True.
Infinity Boss from Newburgh. It's got Cosmic Rays. It's a part of the IPA series. Proudly brewed and canned by Newburgh Brewing Company in Newburgh, New York. 6.2% alcohol by volume. Where are the rest of my notes here? Matuka and Stratton.
I was to say, if you're trying to read off the can, it's like reading a ransom note, so good luck. Yes.
Those are the two hops featured. Please keep this refrigerated, which we did. This beer was born here, right up from the river in the Hudson Valley, in the city of Newburgh. You see, it's got this heart. And half of this heart is a beer. And it's brewed with it.
The other half of the heart is like a handle, as if it's a beer mug. Wow. These guys.
These guys.
My goodness. All right, let's get a look at this robot alien because it's adorable. So it's got teeth. It's got one eyebrow. It's got two. The other eyebrow is up above his head inside of the helmet there. It's expressive.
Yes.
I see.
The little guy, actually, I forget. He must have a name. I don't remember what it is, though. But the little guy who's the boss logo, the little robot guy that's on all the Newburgh Boss beers.
The boss logo.
Well, it's all of the Boss series of beers have him on it.
Yeah.
He's in space. He's got a heart. That's a hop.
Hop, hop, heart.
Also in the corner over here, above the barcode.
Famous song.
Oh, yeah. There's a rocket ship flying into space, and it's got a little robot dog in the cockpit.
Wait, where is that?
Above the barcode.
Oh, look at him. This is great. This. The more you look at it, the more there is. I like the little chubby beer cherub.
Well, that one's been on all of them, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
With the please keep refrigerated.
Please keep refrigerated. Gotta do it.
I appreciate that it's Infinity Boss and it's in space. It's to infinity and beyond, I'm sure.
Where is the I'm not seeing. So there's this beer was born here, but I'm not seeing the crooked arrow. I'm used to their crooked arrow.
Crooked arrow.
There's usually like a slightly crooked arrow from this beer was born here.
Oh, pointing to where it was born. Well, this is actually an updated picture, if you notice, because this is like an actual picture with like actual definition to it versus just like a silhouette that's like in release.
Yeah, except it looks like it was printed on like when your printer is running out of magenta.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But it is in keeping with the general aesthetic of the color scheme on this one.
Drink fresh, store cold. Looks like we finally followed the rules here. I'm ready to try this. It looks really nice.
Yes, it looks nice. If you give it a waft, it smells delightful.
It really does. Oh, that's good. This is what we needed. This is what we needed to get back into
fruity,
it.
effervescent punch right in the nose.
Fruity, effervescent punch. It sounds like it's like how you activate the Winter Soldier.
Gee, that Italian family over there is awfully quiet.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.
That was a fun new sound.
Mine was quiet. I didn't want to spill it.
I gotta say, I know you don't believe it, but I think it makes a difference when the beer is fresh.
Go fuck yourself.
I mean, but come on.
Listen, you're the one having all these kids. I mean, what do you want me to do?
But I mean, like, it's there is a crispness to this that is not just the beer and the way that it was made. It is the fact that it is like a week old.
Well, also, like, how many times do we go like 6 months where I don't see you and I gotta give you a drop of beers that have been accumulating in the 6 months prior? Like, even when I buy them fresh, they don't stay fresh.
I don't fault you. I'm just saying you seem to think that it doesn't make much of a difference.
We're gonna peel. No, that's not what I said.
Make a difference.
It depends on the style. I said for something like this, IPA preferable for sure to have it fresh.
Sure.
But certain styles, especially darker, heavier beers, like a nice Bock or a stout, imperial stout in particular, triple with a heavy alcohol content, those actually often age well. So sometimes it's preferable actually to let those sit around. But in general, most beers are better fresh. I think certain styles of beer, you almost don't tell the difference if it's a bit older. IPA, you generally want fresh. There's science to support that the hop content, specifically the aroma, will actually start to fade. It's different for every style of beer. It's different for what they put in it and how much dry hopping and all that sort of stuff. There's no one hard and fast rule. It's consistent within a recipe, but not consistent across different beers. So,
okay.
I can't guarantee when this was canned specifically. This is their newest mean.
I know when it was born.
Born on February 1st, 2024. Yeah. 6 weeks old.
Nice. Younger than my children. Probably the only beer in the fridge.
Oh.
I mean,
I gave you.
I think it's fair to say there's definitely some beers in our fridge that are older that are older than my eldest child.
I mean, most of them are older than your youngest child.
That's right. Yeah.
There's probably a couple that are older than Elio.
All right. So on this, I will say at first glance and taste, I would, if you had given this to me, I would have guessed it's a pale ale, not necessarily an IPA. Like just a straight up pale ale, like an American pale ale. It's like light. It's weirdly sessionable for slightly over 6%. I feel like it's just like very drinkable and refreshing.
It's like straw colored. It's almost colored more like a wit. It looks like a wit.
It definitely looks that way. It reminds me of. I'm not sure if you ever got to have it, but it reminds me of Magnify's Low Visibility.
I must have because I know we talked about that before.
I really like that one, and this is. I like this. This is really good. This is this is a 4 thuckles up for me.
Oh, full 4. Okay.
Yeah, it's a full 4. This is like a, it caught me at the right time too, because it's hot today. This would
have been a perfect beer like 4 hours ago when it was still sunny out.
Yeah. When I was like grilling sausages.
High 60s out in the sun while grilling. Perfect. Even better.
Yeah. I was grilling sausages and Ellie was picking up sticks. He has a tractor, an electric tractor that he rides. And that has like a little trailer on the back of it.
Nice.
And he was like collecting the branches that fell from the tree,
gathering,
and driving them to the pile. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And then instead of dumping them on the pile, he was putting the pile also in the track. I don't know what his plan was, but he was having a blast.
Does he look like he's got a plan to you?
Oh man. That kid is wild.
He is. He very much seemed to have enjoyed my visit the other day.
Oh yeah, he's a big fan of Cousin Al.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Which is nice. It's nice when one of the little guys is actually happy to see you.
He's been thrown off because every time he wakes up now, like for the past couple days, he's like his cousin Al downstairs. I'm like, he's not. He's not there. Sorry, where were you vis-a-vis the Thuckles?
So I very much like the beer. I think it's very good. But there are definitely a few Newburghs that I prefer that are like some of my favorite beers of all time.
Sure.
So I'm gonna keep this as a 3, a respectable 3 Thuckles.
Yeah, first Thuckles.
I hold them to a high standard, and they often meet it, but it takes a lot to exceed it.
I'm almost done with this.
Well, that's why I did you too.
I should have grabbed the other one already.
I grabbed 2. Why wouldn't you? That's part true. Of the reason why I gave it to you.
Maybe depending on how I feel at our pee break that nobody actually gets to see, like realize happens.
Well, I hope they don't see it.
Yeah, they don't see it. I mean, hey, it was a little touch and go with the Clerks 3 episode because they almost exported it prior to editing that portion of it out. So there's like a good 15 minutes of like talking about going to the bathroom, coming back from the bathroom, talking about things in between.
Well, especially since we were coordinating 3 separate pee breaks at the same time. So.
God, wait.
Well, Mike was there.
Oh, 3 separate. Okay, I thought you meant like we broke multiple times. I was like, in which case, there's definitely one in there.
No, I meant that instead of just the 2 of us going on break, there was 3 of us.
Fair. All right, cool. Yeah, big fan. Thank you for bringing this one down.
You're welcome. We have 2 other Newburgh beers that are pretty new, but we're not going to drink them that new because I don't like to do multiple iterations of the same brewery consecutively. I do like to mix it up.
Yeah. One of them has to at least age a year.
Actually, that would kind of work because the one of them is the cherry stout, so that one might hold up to aging. Actually, I'll take a look.
Sarah Jessica Porter.
Sour Jessica Porter. That's right.
That's not what it was, though, right? It
was Jessica, the sour cherry porter. And we were calling it Sour Jessica Porter.
Oh goodness!
There was a special release of that, and I missed it, and I was so mad.
Yeah, I'm mad too.
Well, I told you about it when it happened.
You embarrassed
me.
Yeah. Let's do some news and nuggets.
Okay.
We have not a ton to do here, but we got to see each other
again.
So again,
as it was written,
we're seeing each other as often as we're recording at this stage in the year. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
We made chimichangas.
We did.
They were delightful.
Very successful collaboration.
It turns out, so Elio fully enjoyed those the next day.
Oh, he tried the chimichanga?
Ate a whole one for lunch.
We gave him just a little quesadilla that day.
Yeah, he was into it. It was definitely too spicy for him, but he was like powering through it. Like he wasn't complaining about it, but his like nose was running.
Because I actually
was, like, a little teary.
Would have much preferred to add more to the actual. I mean, I added hot sauce on it. I really barely tasted the heat in the main chimichanga.
It's not. Yeah, kids are more susceptible to spicy.
Oh, sure.
But I know I can find the spice in it. It wasn't spicy to me or by my standards at all. But like I knew that it would affect him. But yeah, I definitely could have gotten with a little bit more heat. Maybe a little better quality meat. I'm calling you out, Trader Joe's. I
thought you were calling me out at first. I was like, because I was the one who first pointed it out. I was like, this meat is weird for some reason.
Sticky. No, it wasn't. It was. I mean, everything came out good. The spices blended nicely. The texture of the meat was off, and it wasn't your fault.
That's what I was saying. As soon as we threw it in the pot and I tried to break it up, I was like, "This is weird.
Yeah,
this meat is
it wasn't right.
The right consistency.
Definitely wasn't right. Thing is, I rarely ever have their meat in the freezer. I happen to have one pouch in the freezer, and so I was like, hey, well, since we have this one, and Kim was running to the store, I was like, why don't you grab one more? So that they're at least the same.
Yeah.
And then, but like we normally get like the grass-fed ground beef from Whole Foods, and it's so good. It tastes so it's so good. And this
I
was
thought
not
the
that.
taste was fine. It was just the consistency, really.
The taste, yeah. I mean, consistency had a lot to do with it, but I do feel like the taste was like just not quite there.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair though, you're not really buying ground beef for the taste specifically, like in the way you would for certain cuts of steak.
That's true. So it really is the texture that lended itself to it being a subpar meat experience. But the chimichanga as a whole, whew, delightful. We made, I think that was a pretty, you and I. It's not like we cook often together. We cook often.
We literally never cook.
We've cooked together maybe 2 or 3 times, and I feel like it's as if we've worked in a kitchen together for years.
Yeah, I mean,
we have a good rhythm, good direction. There's good teamwork.
I think my best skill as a cook, because I really actually don't cook that often, though. Although I'm trying to do more lately. I think probably my best skill is, they're twofold, but I view them as being tied together. One, I'm pretty good at following direction, and I would view our roles in this endeavor as you being the captain of the ship and me being the pilot.
Chef and Sue.
Well, no, because more specifically, like, you were giving, this is what you want to do, and then I was executing the plan. You know what I mean? Like, that's
it. I mean, that's exactly what those two roles are like.
Okay.
It was, and you. I don't know. I feel like every time somebody had a suggestion, it just raised the bar on how good these chimichangas were going to be.
Which, like, to be fair, I am not a seasoned. I mean, you worked in your dad's pizzeria for a long time, and also cook quite often for yourself and your wife and children. Versus me, who I don't have a cause or occasion to cook that often. I actually volunteer to do so when I have the time, just to get an opportunity to try some different things or whatever. So in keeping with what I just said a couple minutes ago, I follow directions really well. So my comfort in cooking is I have no problem taking someone's recipe. What I'll do is I'll look, if I decide I want to make a thing, I'll look up 5 or 10 different recipes and I'll pick and then the pieces,
make it based off of,
because I don't have either the muscle memory or even like the skill to just like, I'm just going to go do a cooking and like just make something up from scratch. It's not within my toolbox at the moment. Yeah.
So you're all whip stir.
I'm mostly whip, a little stir. But so I think I follow direction well, whether it be verbal or on the page. But also I think kind of like a pretty, like a good drummer, I can drum over or under. Mm-hmm. So, if you need more of this, I can do more of that. If you need a little less of this, I can do a little of that. So I just followed your lead and I filled in the gaps.
Absolutely. It was great. It made it so easy. And I gotta say, like,
especially considering I was not expecting to be cooking, and all of a sudden it was like, here, take this pan and this spoon, and it made magic.
I don't know. I think our turnaround time on 12 chimichangas was pretty quick.
Yeah.
We fed the whole group. There was leftover. We nailed it. I could probably eat chimichangas on a daily basis.
I mean, they're pretty good. So,
all right. So I'm going to throw this out there. Yes or no? Chimichangas, best part of the Oscars.
Ooh. Okay. I mean, I didn't mind the Oscars broadcast. I thought the earlier start time was nice. I thought that they were a little shorter than they've been in their most overindulgent years. Sure. It was under 3.5 hours of actual net time. The chimichangas were pretty excellent. They paired well with the margaritas.
They did. I forgot about the margaritas already.
Yeah, so that little bit of synergy.
Taco dip.
Yeah. Pretty good. Michael Warren did a good job.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the whole experience. I think we timed it all up perfectly. We had some appetizer. We had the main course. We had our drinks. We had our breaks for the kids. We had the broadcast. There's been a couple of times after the Oscars where I felt like I would never be able to walk again because I ate way too much. I think I was properly full after this experience. Yeah. We had some baked goods your cousin made. So
yeah. It was a good time.
I liked their time with the Oscars.
What'd you say?
I thought I liked their time with the Oscars. I thought it was fun.
Too. I definitely I enjoyed watching them. I always do. We kind of knew this going in. We mentioned it last week. Week year for the award show though.
Yeah,
I didn't really care. I didn't really care at all. I just enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, and I think they did a good job this time of balancing. Kimmel's fine. Like, he's a known quantity at this point.
Mm-hmm.
We know what you're getting out of him. They did a good job of, okay, you get your big opening monologue. We're going to insert you a couple times for shtick, and that's it. We're not going to drown you in way too much of the host.
Mm-hmm.
They paced up, like I said, this is the first time that I've noticed them do this, is like every single thing. Like, there's been times where they've done this in the past, like here and there, but having the hosts come out and do 2 awards of the quote unquote lesser categories, cut down on the runtime big time. There's less time getting people in and out and off and on the stage, and it was a good job of keeping the broadcast snappy. I like having those little snippets of the Best Picture nominees throughout. I like having the musical performances. I thought all the performances were pretty good, even the one song I didn't know at all.
Yep.
Obviously, probably one of the show stealing moments was the "I'm Just Ken" performance.
It had to be that and Naked John Cena. Those 2 things were really funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm of the musical performances, but yeah, probably the funniest moment for sure, I would say, is the Cena one.
Yeah. The whole "I'm Just Ken" choreography was hysterical, and I think what was really endearing about the whole performance, just how nobody could contain themselves.
Oh, like, I mean, Billie Eilish and Margot Robbie laughing hysterically in and around Ryan Gosling's face as he's starting. The fact that he didn't miss a beat while both of them, one sitting behind him and one sitting in front of him, are laughing hysterically and trying to cover their face.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that was very funny.
Watching all the people participate as they were putting up on the video board, he's putting the microphone in people's faces. Watching all the guys from the show jump up on stage with him in the second part of the act, cool. Simu and Kingsley Benadire, all of them.
Yeah,
that was cool. So
that was fun. I will say, as far as like Jimmy Kimmel goes, like I really like him as the host of the Oscars, because when he's on stage and he delivers his jokes. He's quick. He doesn't pause for too many laughs or like make it awkward when people don't find certain things funny. He just keeps on cruising. It's a smooth exercise in being a host, and I appreciate it. And we're coming off of, I think it was the Golden Globes that Joe Coy hosted, or was it the Emmys? He hosted one of those, and it was brutal. It was so bad, and like during the show, he was blaming the writers, and it's like, maybe, but it's a
great job delivery. To never get one of these jobs ever again.
Exactly. It was bad. So, but like, this is like, he's Jimmy.
I think the only misfire Kimmel had was sticking with the RDJ joke for too long. And I don't know what the relationship is, but that was a misfire. He went back to it like 3 times. Yeah. That probably should have been one and move on.
Yeah.
The initial joke was fine. I thought that was funny. Just leaning on it after that was not the best. But after that, they did a good job of tightening. And, and I really liked having the change they made with having the 5 former winners for each of the acting categories.
That was cool. I liked that a lot.
I liked that. That was cool.
And also, like, they each seem to have something a little bit more personal of a relationship with the nominee. Like, they had some of them had like stories. Yeah, that I thought was like kind of cool. It definitely seemed like they were they had history. So I liked that. I enjoyed that a lot. I guess the only award, like, I have no problem with it, but the only award that I was surprised was Emma Stone winning over Lily Gladstone. Like, I thought, I just kind of assumed, especially based on all of the other shows, that's where it was going to go. But she didn't either. She definitely did not think that it was going that way either. That was complete shock. I know she's an actor, but like there was something more real about that reaction.
Each of them won a couple of the awards. I forget which one won which one, but I did think that was probably going to be a toss-up. I mostly was just hoping that Lily would win. I think that was a really cool way to start with her first feature role.
Sure.
And obviously, I talked about it a lot last week. My thoughts on that movie in general and her role in it. And it seemed like a shame. I mean, it's for what went into the making of that movie, for it to get totally shut out 0 for 10. It would have been nice to come away with one award and for to be that one. Consider in a way, for all the talk about how all of what we've taken away from Barbie being Ryan Gosling and his song about the dudes in a movie about women, where America Ferrera gets nominated, doesn't win. Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie don't get nominated at all.
Yeah.
For, in a similar idea, a movie about Native Americans and some of the terrible plights that they've had to deal with in this country, for the fantastic performance by a Native actress. It would have been nice to see her recognized, and she walks away empty-handed in the same way that Barbie did. So
Sure. Yeah, I would agree with you, except for the fact that I couldn't get through the movie, which is new information since the last time we recorded. But you've heard me talk about this a little bit.
yes,
It did not. I tried. I watched about an hour plus of it, and I fell asleep. And I was like, okay, no big deal. Tomorrow I will finish it. Tomorrow came around, and I was like, it was the end of the night. It's time to relax and throw something on. And I was like, I don't wanna. Like, I just don't. I have no interest in continuing that movie. It was. I understand it. I get what you're going for. I think that the story is kind of an important thing to know and understand. That being said, it's easy to know and understand from the it's not a hard premise to grasp. It's bad. It happened. I understand. The movie is not good, in my opinion. I don't like it. I don't like the way that it was being executed. I thought it was way too drawn out. I understand the choice to try to kind of live in these moments for a little bit longer and kind of like, I don't know, let them breathe. That being said, it's too much of a book. And books are good in their form factor, and movies are good in their form factor. And when you try to do the book in the movie, it doesn't work. And I don't know exactly how 1-to-1 this type of thing was, but it was
it's really not, actually, from what
painful.
I understand.
Then I don't know what you're doing. Get an editor.
Don't get me wrong, it was part of it, but much more of the book, I think, is spent with, well, frankly, something you didn't engage with in any way, shape, or form, considering you didn't get to this point in the movie. It's much more about the founding of the FBI, from what I understand.
Sure, and that seems problematic that I didn't even get to a hint of that happening.
But that's not the version of the story that they wanted to tell. They wanted to tell the version of it about how the way that the FBI gains its credibility is, spoiler alert, solving this grotesque series of murders of natives. Mm-hmm. That's how they get cemented as being an important agency within the federal government.
So I will say that all of that sounds interesting to me. Mm-hmm. And I kind of want to, I would like to finish it. I think what I'll probably end up doing is watching like 30 minutes at a time over the course of the next week in the morning.
Yeah.
And finishing it off. But that's not how I like my movies. I don't like that I need that break or that time because I just couldn't do it. It was. I
mean, it's heavy. Painful. It's heavy material. It's a lot.
There's really heavy things that you could sit through in one sitting and be engaged with. That was not it. It was. I mean, they definitely it was a complete miss for me.
They definitely went for some atmospheric stuff. Like I said, this isn't like, when I talk about this movie, it's not, oh yeah, that was so great. Like, in a way of like, I enjoyed it. I didn't. I kind of appreciated and respected it, but like, it's not meant for like casual enjoyment. I found it interesting. Rather than you could probably take an entire semester course on this subject. Getting it distilled down into a 3-ish hour movie, to me, actually was beneficial, because then if you want to know more, you can certainly pursue that in whatever way you choose.
Yeah, go as deep or as wide as you want.
Yeah, I thought for getting a really good snapshot of it, especially considering I didn't actually know that that's what this movie was about. I mean, certainly from the trailer, as you could tell, it's probably about natives getting taken advantage of. The specifics of how and why, I had no concept of until I watched it.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of gross. And by kind, I mean extremely. I want to circle back to something you said. It's like, it's not like for enjoyment. And I agree. And I don't think that it necessarily, like, enjoy is not the word that I'm looking for, though. Like, there's plenty of movies that I've seen where it's like, man, by the end of it, I'm like, that was good. But it's not. But enjoy is not the word you would use to describe your time with it. And I don't know what it is. I don't know how to put words to that, like what I'm talking about. But this doesn't hit that either for me. It just wasn't. I just didn't appreciate it as a movie at all. And I am curious to see the rest of the story, but I feel like it's gonna be it already felt like a drag, and it's gonna be it's gonna feel like a chore. I don't want my movies to feel like a chore. I know the I know the antonym. I don't want it to feel like a chore. But whatever the opposite of that is, yeah.
No, I understand what you're saying. I didn't experience it that way, but I understand.
I'm glad. I'm glad you got to appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of but like me, I feel like having such a. I would say that because I had such a strong negative feeling towards it and didn't get through it and decided not to get through it, even though I could have for the show, I think is enough of a reason for me to understand why it didn't really win anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
that being said, Roma and the Phantom Thread won a bunch of things, and they're worse.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it just went up against a bit of a juggernaut in Oppenheimer. Not that it won everything, but it won all the big stuff, or at least most of it, right?
So, like Oppenheimer is a perfect example, right? I didn't enjoy it. Like, enjoy is not the word, but I didn't find it to be a chore. I found it very fascinating and captivating, and I think I've described it. I think it's like an 8 out of 10, but it's also I think it's Christopher Nolan's second worst movie. And that's the only way. That's how I could easily pinpoint it on the list. I don't mean anything super negative by that. But I get it. I get why it's there, and it was. I'm glad I watched it. It's probably not a movie that I'll rewatch. There's movies like that which I'm okay with too.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird experience. But I was glad it won.
Yeah, I'm glad because it's like kind of the final piece of like the legitimacy of Nolan as not just a box office draw, but of like an excellent filmmaker. Or whatever, right? Like in the objective sense, as opposed to some of the subjective things, or vice versa, if you want to say that way. The objective being the dollars at the box office, and the subjective being, how you rate his art.
Yeah, but it's funny because it's like. It's like he makes these movies, like he'll make like the Memento, and he'll make the Prestige, which these movies are like holy like crazy mind benders, incredible movies, but not necessarily box office hits. And it's like, okay, all right, hang on one second. Let me go make these 3 Batman movies and knock you off your socks so that you start paying attention, and then get a little weird with Tenet, and then transition back into what I'm trying to do. And I feel like I'm really
Inception came out between his second and third Batman movie, right? So
yeah, I think so. It's just it's kind of crazy. And then it's like, then he's like, okay, now this one is just about an interesting story on my skills, not about my story. And really well done. I prefer his other stuff.
Actually, it's kind of
Memento.
It's kind of perfect that he should win over Marty, considering the arc being somewhat similar, where so many people rate so many of Marty's movies over The Departed, but that's what he finally won for.
Right.
And the same thing with Nolan. I think most people would rate.
Yeah, that's
or a lot of people would rate. I mean, that was the argument you were making, well, just now, more specifically last week, where now it's different because The Departed is probably the quote-unquote box officeiest and entertainingest movie of it. It's between Departed and Wolf of Wall Street, probably the most broad appeal in that one versus some of his other ones, which were more artistic, quote unquote.
Can you name some of his other than those? I can't think off the top of my head.
General movies he made.
Yeah, his
Goodfellas, Raging Bull, Last Temptation of Christ. There's that one that they make fun of in The Sopranos. Was it Kundun?
I know
the one that Joker ripped off.
Oh, right.
The last King of Comedy or whatever it was, or King
Right.
of Comedy, I forget what it was.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so like, yeah, and that's funny because like for me,
The Aviator,
of what you've listed and what I've seen, The Departed is my favorite of those things.
It's one of my absolute favorite movies.
Yeah.
I love Catch Me If You Can as well. I don't think that should have won Best Picture or anything, but I love that movie.
I definitely saw that. I would like to rewatch that.
I've seen that a bunch of times.
Yeah.
To me, though,
it's not for me.
Oh, I think that's a fantastic movie. And to me, I'm actually, and I don't remember what was nominated that year. I don't even remember if Goodfellas was nominated or not because it came out like the year I was born, I think. But looking back at it with like the benefit of hindsight, when you talk about the artistic merit and the quote unquote broad appeal, like it's kind of the most shocking of his that didn't.
Sure.
And I know, if you look at the artistic standpoint of it, especially at that period of time, and I don't remember what was all like big winning, but like the fact that something like Raging Bull wouldn't have won, which I don't actually have much regard for. I didn't really particularly enjoy it as a movie, but I'm sure that there's film critics out there, if they were listening to this, that would be screaming about X, Y, and Z of why it's such a spectacular movie. And I respect that. It's definitely the weaker part of our knowledge base of these things. So
yeah. I'd happily give like all of them a try, like all of the ones that I'm missing a try to like kind of see what I see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've seen half-ish of his movies. I don't know what it is. I just truly never had any interest in The Aviator. I mean, I'll probably finally sit down and watch it at some point. I don't
know. Poster's boring.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about that movie that I just, even when it came out, I had no interest.
It's like the Aviator. You're like, should we sit down and watch The Aviator? And you're like, Aviator, planes. Can we watch Top Gun Maverick again instead?
Very different movies. Shutter Island. Shutter Island.
Yeah, I saw
Gangs
that.
of New York. Those are all his movies too.
Oh, Gangs of New York is a really good movie.
Yeah.
I watched an interview about getting what's his face to sign up for Gangs of New York.
Daniel Day-Lewis. What's his face?
That's the one. Yep, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Old what's his
face. And basically, Martin Scorsese sent Leonardo DiCaprio to go feel him out. Which is it's a really funny story if you could find the interview. It's it's an entertaining watch. And it's just so awkward. And it's, I don't know, it's just comical. But that movie, I remember that movie being really good, but I don't remember anything about it. Like I remember I remember moments, but it's older at this point. Like I don't even, like, when did it come out? I feel like I saw it around when it came out.
Yeah, I saw that when I was like 11 years old.
Yeah, okay. So I'm not crazy. It was many years ago.
In 2002, I want to say.
Okay. All right.
I shouldn't have watched that one.
Yeah, you might argue that I shouldn't have either. I mean, we're only talking a couple years difference. Kim told me that she saw Saving Private Ryan in the theater. I'm like, that can't be right.
I didn't see it in theater, but my dad made a point of showing me the movie like when it first was available, like on like home video.
I definitely saw it pretty quickly after it was available at a home, but I did not see it in theaters.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
actually pretty sure. Okay, so this is a weird throwback. I don't know if you'll remember this. Back when it was a time when you visited, and I think you were all staying with our grandparents. They had the TV in the kitchen. You remember this? The TV in the dining room on Greenport Street.
TV in the dining.
It was in the dining. So like the kitchen and dining room was like one room. Yeah, and the TV was like is kind of catty-cornered by the telephone that was hanging off the wall next to the fridge.
Oh, over there. Okay, I don't remember there being a TV in that room, huh?
Yeah, and actually okay. So you might not remember this at all, but I remember you telling me about parts of Saving Private Ryan
Okay.
and watching it on that television.
Huh. Interesting.
No memory of this.
No.
And that was the first time I saw scenes of it, and then
Wait, so I was talking about it while we were watching it, or I
yeah,
told you?
it happened to be like I don't know why they were watching it on that TV, or maybe it was like a little bit further out from it being just like available to rent. It might have been on something, but we had turned it on, and you were talking about certain things that were coming up, and we watched them, and then maybe like not too long after that, I watched the whole movie.
Okay.
Well, we were definitely young. Yeah, I have a vivid memory. I have a very vivid memory of that. And I don't really know why.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's weird the things that you remember in that way. I mean, actually, to be perfectly honest, I don't know that I've sat down and watched Gangs of New York since that first time I watched it.
Sure.
I mean, I've seen parts of it a bunch of times, I guess. But there was a long period of time even where I hadn't seen any of it because I've forgotten a lot of the details. But I remember even from that first time, certain images really vividly being stuck in my mind. I mean, the whole opening sequence. And at that time, I remember asking, was like, so does Liam Neeson die in every movie he's in? Because that came out only a couple of years after The Phantom Menace, and
sure,
I thought it was a whole thing they were billing that Liam Neeson was like one of the stars of the movie, and he dies 10 minutes into the movie. Now he wasn't billed as the star. It was definitely meant to be Daniel Day-Lewis and Leonardo DiCaprio, but I feel like it was like, and also Liam Neeson.
Yeah, dude, I know exactly what you're talking about. There was, I remember that for that movie, but I also, I remember being completely hoodwinked by by executive decision.
I was about to say, executive decision is the one that you've always brought up.
Yeah, the top billing of Steven Seagal while I was in a Steven Seagal phase and being like, oh yeah, let's get into this. And you're 5 minutes in, you're like, what just happened? He's not there anymore.
Yeah, I don't think
he's not coming back either. That was clear.
I don't think this was quite to that level. Like, it was definitely Leonardo DiCaprio, Daniel Day-Lewis, and Liam Neeson. And it's like, kind of.
You brought up the Phantom Menace. I'm going to do one more tangent anecdote before we probably wrap up Oscars and move on. But you brought up the Phantom Menace, and I have I kind of did they? I don't even remember. Did they already do the re-release to theaters? I know it was happening this year.
No, it's May.
It's
May. It's the beginning of May. Yeah,
I'm gonna try to go.
It's the 25th anniversary. I just heard about this like a week and a half ago. I meant to bring it up to you the other day.
I would love to see, like, I would like to try to go and maybe like during a weekday, like at some random time, and bring Elio. I know he hasn't been to the movie theater yet. He's still young. He's not going to sit through a whole thing. But
you guys haven't brought him to anyone, okay?
No, it won't. It won't. I don't think it'll last. We've kind of been holding out because the movie Elio is coming out later this year, so I thought that would be a fun first for him.
Yeah,
but the fact that this movie is being re-released,
your best bet is to bring him to one of like the Disney, Pixar, or whatever movies, because it's the style of movies that they make for people his age. He likes some of those types of movies. The colors and the music and all that will get his attention. Although supposedly I don't actually remember it, other than that just that it's been talked about a million times. But the first like actual movie my parents brought me to was Jurassic Park.
Nice.
I was like 3.5 years old, and apparently I loved it. So I can confirm I love it. But like, I remember seeing it a lot, being 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. I don't remember it from when I watched it in the theater when I was 3 years old or whatever.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I get that.
And I don't know that that's a movie that is meant for a 3-year-old to sit down and watch in that way in a theater.
Definitely not. And I mean, with all the trade BS in Phantom Menace, it's not going to really necessarily capture his attention, but it is bright. It is interesting. There's a lot of weird and exciting going on at different times in the movies that I think that he may end up liking it. The thing is, what I'm getting at is I remember so vividly when the Phantom Menace was announced and like the lead up to it being released and being just so excited about it. Like, I loved the idea that like, oh my God, I'm going to get to see a Star Wars movie in the movie theaters.
Go see a Star Wars
time. And I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. I had action figures. We were going to Taco Bell and trying to collect the things. It was almost like a Monopoly board type thing where you collect all the pieces, and if you get like the right sequence of them, you win prizes and stuff. I was doing that. I loved it. I was so excited, and I loved the movie. I loved the movie as a kid. I thought it was great. I watched it over and over again. I got it. We saw it. I saved up my money. I pre-ordered the VHS. When the VHS came out, I watched it every day. Like I watched it like every night. I would put it on when I went to sleep. I watched it after school. It was amazing. I really enjoyed it. I understand the problems with the movies, but I still have that nostalgia for it. And the things that I liked about it, I still like about it. It's still fun. It's still weird. It still has it's the first time you saw a lightsaber battle like that. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that was the coolest thing. So like,
no, there is good in that movie. I always go back and forth on 1 and 2 because I think 1 is a more consistent experience. It doesn't have quite as many highs, but I don't think it has nearly the lows.
I don't know. The high of 1, the finale of 1 I think is far better than anything that happens in 2.
Oh, I don't know. The whole sequence from when the Jedi get dropped into the pit and like that whole final like half hour.
It's cool.
I think it's just a spectacular. The scope of the battle with the clones for the first time and all that. You know, bunch of different like that was. I mean, even like especially like going back to being a kid, like it's like the type of thing you would do if you and your friends pool all your Star Wars toys, right? It's these couple of Jedi fighting those couple of droids over here, and these couple of fighting Jango Fett over there, and then we got the big fight with the Jedi and the Sith at the end, like, you know, with the
that's kind of how I felt about the first movie though, with like the space battle and the lightsaber battle and the ground battle. Like there's all of these things happening at once, which was just so much fun. But like regardless, like I still have a fun like I don't dislike that movie nearly as much as most people in the fan base do. I really enjoy it and I have really fond memories of it, and I just love Star Wars. But Elio he's gotten into it, and very much so because of the Young Jedi show. He likes to watch that. He asks.
Yeah, we talked about that a few months ago.
He calls it. He's like, "Can we put on the new Star Wars?" So we'll put that on and we'll watch it. And Did you show him the
Tales of the Jedi too? Because that might be the next step for him.
I'm not sure. I don't think I've put that on for him yet, but we could probably do that too.
Or even actually, Visions might be better. In some ways.
Yeah,
I don't know. Certain episodes would be great for him. Certain episodes maybe would be a bit beyond him. But
yeah, I'll see. I'll try them and see. But like, I mean, I've put on A New Hope, and he's sat through like an hour and a half of it, like engaged. Like he's curious. So that excites me. And then I've never put on the prequel trilogy, so it's not something that he'll have seen before. But the fact that, like, I don't know, I just feel like this timing of it, like, I feel like I have to just try. Yeah. I have to bring him just to see, because you know what happened today is, sometimes you'll ask him to repeat something. So, like, he'll do something that I think is really funny, and I'll ask him to repeat it for Kim, and he repeats something else that he did that is equally funny that I did not even know about. But he was using his potty, and he was singing. He had just watched Little Rascals, so that's the reason why. But he was singing "You Are So Beautiful" to me on the potty, and I thought it was so funny. And then when he was done, I brought him. Like Kim was in our bedroom. I brought him in there because we were getting him ready for bed, and I asked him to sing. I was like, "Can you sing that song that you were singing?" And he looked at me, and he tell he was like trying to think of what he was singing. I was like, "What song were you singing before?" And he goes, "Star Wars." I was like, "What?" And I was like, "How does that go?" And he started singing the Star Wars theme. I was like, "You know it?" It was amazing. So, yeah, I don't know. May he'll be, on the
cusp of
3/4 to 3. Like, I think I think we might be able to pull it off. And that's why I say, like, if I just take like a day off and go like at a weird time when maybe the movie theater is either empty or at least not too crowded, like, we can always leave, if it's not working out. It wouldn't be a big deal. I've got credits.
Credits are no use.
They'll do fine.
Only money.
Back to the Oscars. I don't have anything else. I enjoy it. I do think that it's pretty consistent. I feel like the Oscars has a pretty significant like sine wave. It's like good year, okay year, good year, okay year. That's just, I mean, that's anecdotal because I'm not pulling on the data of the previous years, but
we're still in the throes of the
yeah,
whole pandemic issues, though. I mean, I don't even know if this year will fully get out of that. It may be until next year that things are quote unquote back to normal.
I think
vis-a-vis movies.
More on that in our next topic, but I think 26 is going to be the year that movies kind of hit their stride again.
So you don't even think 25? Okay,
I don't. No, I'm sad about it, but I really just don't think it's going to happen within this or next year. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. We're in a rough spot. But yeah, overall, even if the movies aren't great or I don't care too much about any of the awards, it's always been enjoyable to me to watch Oscars and have annual onion dip.
That we didn't have.
We did have it.
Did you end up making it? Oh, you did make it then.
I ended up making it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot. I didn't have any of it. I'm not.
Yeah, no, you're not a sour cream guy.
No, actually, sour cream is okay. I don't like onions very much.
You're not an onion person, which is insane.
So
to me.
onion in sour cream, not my cup of tea.
But you'll crush a French onion soup though.
I will have a French onion soup. I won't eat the onions, but the broth and the cheese.
Oh,
and the
you
bread.
don't eat the onions. Okay.
Yeah, the broth and the cheese and the bread, though, fantastic.
But I gotta understand, you don't eat the onions. Is that a texture thing? Because the soup is mostly onion flavor.
No, I know. It's weird. I don't have one true definitive thing. I've softened on some of it, but I still don't particularly like them.
You haven't softened on the onions the way the onions have softened in the soup.
That's true.
What are we even talking about anymore?
So,
can we talk about this for a second? I poured the rest of the beer out, and this is what it looks like.
It looks chunky from here.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, it looks milky. It's a little gray.
That's not... What is that?
Chaff. Separate the wheat from the chaff. Maybe that's why they put too much beer in the can, so you wouldn't pour the bad in.
I think that it needed to be rolled.
Did it need to be caramelized?
Probably. Oh, I didn't caramelize a beer for you.
No.
Right.
But anyway, I'm reworking my theorem on onions. So what I realized is...
What a phrase. What a turn of phrase for an evening.
I rolled that phrase in a way that you did not that beer. So, so there's different onions. It turns out there's different kinds. I already knew that. It's fine. This type of onion matters. The cut of onion matters. When I use onions, my mom will mock me for this because I don't like onions, but I will cook with them. She's like, I think you don't like onions. Well, I'm like, well,
they're a necessity.
It's like two things. One, you do need them in a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Two, when I cook, I am willing to explore the space and take the time required. I understand why someone who was like feeding a family of 5 needed to do things as quickly and efficiently as possible. I will cut the onion the way that they cut the garlic in Goodfellas when he's teaching him how to shave the garlic.
I'm going to cut this so that it doesn't even exist.
Basically. Because, like, that's part of the thing. It's not even about the texture. It's just about, there's this thing I don't like.
You're like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to feel it.
Well, no, that's the thing is, like, I'm taking a bite of something and there's, like, a substantial hunk of onion. It's like, that's not what I'm here for. It's meant to be, like, I don't know, a timpani in an orchestra. Like, it's just supposed to be part of the experience in the background. And if you really listen for it, you can hear it. But it's
not when I play the timpani drums, man. It was the best.
It's not supposed to be blaring in your face. And so if I take a bite of something and I'm like, this tastes like onion, it's not working properly unless it's French onion soup.
Sure.
So that's part of it. 2, style of onion matters. Shallots, no issues. Me and shallots are friends. I use shallots in cooking.
Me and shallots are tight.
I got really mad because Monday I was off. I got home about noon. My mom was off from work. My dad was out of town for a few days. It's like, I will cook dinner because I'm not usually able to do it, but I have the time. And it was like, you just tell me what we have.
You're coming off the high of chimichangas. I get it.
Yeah, sure. Well, but I was just like, okay. I'm like, I literally don't have plans for the rest of the day. So, and she was like, oh, I'm tired. I think I'm taking a nap. I was like, all right, I will think of something to cook. It was like, you just told me the other day, you have 400 pounds of chicken thighs in the freezer. I'm going to take some chicken thighs out, start defrosting them. Let me find a recipe that will work with this. Searched around. I made this like creamy garlic chicken thigh recipe with like, it was like a spicy garlic cream sauce.
Nice.
Not super complicated. Came out really good. It was really delicious. But I was supposed to use a shallot.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a shallot. All we had was a regular onion. I was like, I don't want the fucking onion. I want the shallot. The other part of it is, I think people get carried away with the onion. A lot of times, I will end up having the amount of onion that I put in. It's still fucking delicious. It's there in the background where it needs to be, and it's out of my fucking face. Yeah. But like, I don't know. I've noticed certain onions, it's certain things, it's certain combinations of onion with other thing where there's like a chemical reaction where it feels like it just doesn't work for me. I get that other people like it. It just doesn't work for me. Yeah. There's other things that when it's in it, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. Even if I can see them, even if I can taste them, even if I can feel the texture of them, they're inoffensive to me. They're just a passenger. There's other times where it feels like they try and take the wheel and I'm like, you're not supposed to be driving.
You should embrace the box grater.
Like the big one with like the multiple sides and the different.
Yeah. Because if you could grate the onion on the big side and it'll disappear on you, but you'll get the essence and that'll be perfect for you.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't mind cutting it. It doesn't.
Oh no. Me. I mean, you're going to get this smaller and thinner and easier to disappear than you will with a knife.
That's probably true. But to me, even just the taking the time and effort to just cut it as thinly and dice it as minutely as possible, that's enough for me. Anytime I've cooked and used them, they don't bother me at all.
How were the onions for you in the chimichangas? Noticeable?
I remember how I told you I was a pilot and you were the captain?
Yeah.
So part of being a pilot is sometimes the captain tells you to go somewhere and you just steer around the rocks.
You would have used half the onion.
I would have used less, but also my point is, I made a conscious effort to the ones that didn't get the most excellent cutting treatment. I made lemonade.
Yeah.
I didn't make a big deal about it. I just did it. I didn't tell you about it. It wasn't important.
That's fine. We also those also got cooked down a good amount before.
Sure, that matters too. Because that's the thing. Is like if you just fucking chop them up and throw them in a sauce, like
yeah.
I find that onions bother me the most actually in my mom's sauce, and my mom's sauce is good, but when she's lazy with the onions, that's where they bother me.
Lazy. This recipe is lousy with onions.
This is lousy.
All right, let's get out of here. So, Oscar's done.
How did we get on onions? I don't even remember.
Well, I don't know. We'll see you next year.
Does it matter?
Let's move on. The Batman. Which is what the sequel should be called.
Lousy with onions?
No, the Batman.
The Batman. Two Batman. Two Bat, two man.
No. The Batman 2, Part 2, right? They're doing that. They're trying to do it.
It just says
they're doing it.
It just says the Batman 2 in this.
All right, I thought it was Part 2, but okay.
The Batman 2 release date delayed a year to 2026.
Oh, interesting. The year that I said movies were going to come back.
That's correct. Subheading. Robert Pattinson returns to star in the sequel, which was originally set to hit theaters in October of 2025. This is on the wrap. Matt Reeves' The Batman 2 has been delayed a year and will now be released on October 2nd, 2026. Robert Pattinson will return to star, blah, 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 but was delayed due to stalled script development during the 2023 Hollywood strikes.
Fair.
It will open in the early October slot that has been a boon to Warner Brothers, at least since Demolition Man in 1993, with strong openings for films like, and hold on to your hats for this one, Gravity in 2013, Annabelle in 2014, A Star is Born in 2018, and Joker in 2019. Joker, Folie à Deux, starring Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga, will open on that same weekend in 2024.
So, wait, sorry, say that again? That same weekend in 24?
Meaning that first weekend of October.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited for a sequel to that Batman.
Yeah, we really both really like that movie, even though it somehow manages to be 3 hours long.
Yeah. I will say, I'm hopeful. I know people are signed on and there's contracts and stuff. I'm really curious like how stable of it is it that this like how realistic is it that this movie does come out? You think?
Well, let's read on here. The first movie, which was released 2 years ago this month, grossed $772 million worldwide at the box office. So that's one feather in its cap, to the point you were bringing up. The new release date for the Batman 2 gives space from the release date of DC Studios' inaugural Superman film from filmmaker James Gunn, which will be released on July 11th, 2025. Superman Legacy is meant to be the first part of the first phase of the DCU, the attempt by Warner Brothers Discovery to make an interconnected DC Comics cinematic universe. As for the follow-up to the Batman, it will remain separate from the otherwise interconnected DC Studios continuity. At a presentation for journalists last year, Gunn noted that such darker, more adult-skewing side stories like Todd Phillips' Joker, or as he joked, Teen Titans Go, would be explicitly labeled as a DC Elseworld. Additionally, Gunn and Peter Safran also revealed that there would be an upcoming movie that will introduce yet another live-action Batman, while also introducing Damian Wayne, Bruce Wayne's son, who eventually becomes Robin.
That's what I'm talking about. So his universe's Gunn's universe's Batman movie. When is that slated for?
Who knows?
Because I would imagine it would be 1 to 2 years after the Superman movie.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what else they want to do for their quote unquote like first phase.
I guess this all assumes that the Superman movie is a success.
They finally cast him, right?
I think so. I honestly, they have burned me so many times that I'm just waiting for the movie to come out, and I'm not excited about it.
Yeah, I'm trying to see Superman. The poster, when you look on IMDb for the new Superman movie, it just says in old school comics like font, July 11th, 2025, only in theaters. But in the red and yellow font on the like baby blue background.
Right.
David Corenswet.
Cornsweat?
Corenswet? CORENSWET.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know who that is.
He is 30, almost 31 years old. He was in The Politician.
Oh.
We watched that, right?
Yeah.
Who was he? River? Oh, he was River. The guy who
I could see that.
Spoiler alert, killed himself in that show.
All right. He seems like he could be. He's got Superman jaw.
He was in that new A24 movie that was part of like a 2-part thing that was like a prequel, requel, whatever, not requel. Pearl. He was in We Own This City.
Prequel to what?
No, sorry, I forget which one was. Yeah, I think that's a prequel. It was prequel to the movie X. The two movies came out pretty close together. They're about like the same story, but one's like quote unquote present day, one was the past or whatever it was. It was about these people who like rent out a farmhouse to shoot like a porno, and they turns into a slasher fic. They get killed by the people who own the
that old farm. Chestnut.
And then this one is like the prequel about the woman who owned the farm or whatever. So I didn't see either movie, but the people were talking about it a lot last year. Or the year before, whenever that was. This
Superman movie is just called Superman, right?
Well, in that story I just read, I think it said Superman Legacy.
Oh, okay. That's the name that I remember hearing.
But on IMDb, it still just says Superman. Looks like they're building kind of a nice cast here.
They got a good cast, yeah. We got Nicholas Hoult as Lex, yeah. Rachel Brosnahan, that's good.
Nathan Fillion, Millie Alcock, Wendell Pierce, Anthony Carrigan, Sean Gunn, because James Gunn's making it.
Sure.
I don't know.
Right.
I like some of them.
I mean, I'm happy that I enjoy superhero movies. I just that DC is so effed. Like,
I am willing, at least as of right now, a year and a half out from this, I'm willing to give a Superman movie that James Gunn is excited to make a chance. I really am.
Sure. Okay.
Because, like, in retrospect, it was pretty obvious. I'm not the first person or even the 100th person to say this. It seemed like Zack Snyder pretty much hated Superman, but he was locked into making a bunch of movies about him, finding every reason to try and make it about everything other than him.
Right.
I'm assuming that James Gunn, now, to be fair, they're paying him an obscene amount of money, I'm sure. But I'm assuming the reason he's doing all of this is because he actually wants to be doing it. And so if this is the movie that he picked that he needs to do to start this whole thing off, for like in earnest, I'm assuming that means that he actually wants to make this movie.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to give it a shot because I like his movies.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I'm just a little bit worried about like I feel like are we officially cutting out everything else?
What do you mean?
This is just a brand new universe.
It sounds like it, yes.
That's the problem. It sounds like it.
Well,
nobody's saying that explicitly, like, hey, none of the stuff before or the elsewhere, whatever it is, none of it matters. It's not part of this. It's something completely different.
So I think the reason that they're not being 100% concrete about this stuff is I think they want to leave themselves the option where if something works, they can grandfather and canonize it in the way Star Wars is with certain things. Where, Thrawn wasn't part of the canon, we will canonize this character and use parts of his backstory to craft what we're doing with him, right? Like that's.
But I think that they should have a better direction of what they're trying to do. I think they need to own the fact that the Snyderverse didn't work, and they need to abandon it as part of what they're trying to do.
I think
they could do that by filing it under Elseworlds or whatever the hell the other thing was.
Well, that's part of what they're doing. Like they're diversifying their portfolio as to how they're approaching all of this, right? So I think part of it is there was a Matt Reeves Batman that was super successful and people really liked it. We want to continue to be able to make money on that property while also not having to bend over backwards to try and fit it into this other thing we're trying to do. So they are literally trying to have a cake and eat it too with that situation, right?
Yeah.
And leave themselves open to the fact that it's an Elseworld. It's an alternate universe. If we found some way, a la a Flash-style movie that we're going to get into multiverse, could we bring him in? Sure. But we don't have to go crazy trying to fit everything to that. We're going to do something else from scratch. But also, Jason Momoa still really wants to play Aquaman. We have a project that we can do that with. We're still open to be able to bring him in and do it. I think that's what they're trying to do as of right now. But like 85% of this is we're just starting over.
85% is not enough for me.
I mean, I'm making up numbers. I'm not in those rooms. I don't know.
I know, but that's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about the messaging, is that it feels like a half measure. And
I think they know what they want to do. I think they have a lot of it in ink, some of it in pencil, and they just don't want to say something definitively that closes off doors. I think that's the point of what they're doing.
Yeah, but you can... Yeah, whatever. It's fine. You could...
I don't think that it's the wrong approach from them overall. Like, just... We're going to do this thing that we think is pretty concrete, but we will leave ourselves open to having options to do other things if an opportunity... It makes fiscal sense. A la Matt Reeves is going to make a movie that's going to make us $600, $700, $800 million. You know? And that's their prerogative.
Yeah, I know. But the idea that we're starting over with a new Superman in a new Superman movie, but we're being cagey about whether or not it is completely seperated, or
I don't think they're being cagey
on
about
its own.
I don't think they're being cagey about that part. I think that's the part they've been definitive about. This is a new thing we're doing. This is the starting point of all of this.
Yeah, I don't know.
It seems like
I will reserve judgment until after I see the first movie.
Oh, I mean, like, yeah, I'm not giving them any benefit of the doubt. I'm just going based on what they've done and what they've said and what they say they're planning to do. It sounds like they're starting from scratch. They're wiping the board. It's just that if they have an opportunity to, cash in on something, they're going to do that also.
Yeah. I think one of my biggest concerns with James Gunn doing this stuff is the fact that he did what the Suicide Squad thing that was also a reboot, recall, whatever, was also him.
Yeah.
So I assume that he has some tie to that, and that is enough of of a direct line to the other universe that is bad. The current, because nothing in his universe in his like this new universe has come out yet. The current universe, the one that Aquaman is in, it's bad. It's all bad. It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not cohesive. The storylines suck. I think Zack Snyder really murdered that entire thing, and they just kept beating that dead horse. They skinned that cat like Peter over and over again. I told them to stop doing what they're doing, but they kept doing it. It's bad.
Yeah, I liked his Suicide Squad movie,
but I couldn't because it was still in that universe.
Which is funny because we role reverse because you were the one who kept trying to give them chances, and I was the one who was pretty much out from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. You got to set the bar in the right spot so that they can actually go surpass it. But well, whatever. It's fine. I don't want to spend any more time on that. The Batman, I'm excited about.
I have one secret new before we get to
a secret new.
Because I discovered it while I was waiting for you to finish loudly typing your notes when we were getting started. I don't want to spend too much time on it. We can spend just as much time as we need to discuss it. That could be 30 seconds. It could be 10 minutes, whatever. So I have a tweet. I'm going to read this tweet. Nicolas Cage says, National Treasure 3 is not happening. Quote, if you want to find treasure, don't look at Disney. It's not there. Hang on. Response to that. Huge fumble by Disney. National Treasure 3 could have gotten 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. And so long as the trailer has Nicolas Cage saying something insane like, FDR's wheelchair isn't just a wheelchair, it's a map, I'm there opening night.
That's actually, that's sad to me that there won't be another National Treasure. That being said, I saw Nicolas Cage at the Oscars and he terrified me. So,
why did he terrify you?
Because he was trying to. Did you see him? Because it was Madame Tussauds Nicolas Cage.
Because he was trying to steal Paul Giamatti's eye, or
yeah. I love those movies.
I like those movies. Specifically, I like the first one.
They're just so entertaining.
Yeah, I would have checked out a National Treasure 3. What the hell? I mean,
same. I would have also. I just I'm not like it's whatever. It's something that I've like all but forgotten about, and if like I saw like randomly, National Treasure. Okay, maybe I'll try that again. National Treasure 3 is in production. I'd be like, fun. And I'd go see it, and I would know exactly what I'm getting into.
Yeah,
it's entertaining stuff. Why don't we let's do a brief consumption?
Yeah.
What are you watching?
Shogun.
And how's that?
It's pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
maybe I'll check it out.
The 4th episode came out the other day. I have not had the opportunity to watch that one yet because me and my dad are watching it together. I watched the first 3. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty intense. Surprising amount of conversation. Not a lot of swords just yet. A little bit of swords. Not a lot of swords.
Okay.
But it's an interesting concept.
It's called Shogun, you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
So apparently there was this novel, and then there was a movie that came out in the 80s, I want to say. And it was generally not regarded very well for like a litany of reasons.
Yeah, I see that right now.
But this show so far, from what I've seen from the people who've gotten like advanced copies, like writers, whatever, like my close personal friend, Alan Sepinwall and such, they're all like fantastic. I've watched the first 3 or 4 episodes. I think it's really strong so far. It's very talky, and most of it is in Japanese. Subtitled.
Sure.
I find the storyline super compelling. So the best I can make of this, because I didn't know exactly what to go in. I didn't know if this was a true story, if it was a fictional story. I had no idea. Watched the first 3 episodes. When I decided to put this on for the notes today, I did a quick 5-10 minute dive into the internet to learn a little bit of the backstory. So supposedly, the novel, which is well regarded, is a historical fiction novel. So it's based on true events, but not strictly speaking a true like accounting of these things. But apparently very much inspired by real life things. The gist of I was just going to let you deal with the fact that you spilled
water all over my body.
It didn't show up on the microphone, so I was just going to let the fact that you dump water all over yourself be our little.
But secret. It's closed.
It doesn't matter. The gist of it was, as is especially as often the times with these sorts of things, especially something that was written whatever it was 40 or 50 years ago. The main lens of the book is a English sailor, so I think that person in real life was a little bit more of a background character than it is in the book and show. I think they gave him greater prominence in events for somewhat obvious reasons. And you can debate about the legitimacy of all of that, whatever. But either way, the book is generally well regarded. This show is super interesting so far. And basically the gist of the events is at like the year 1600, and this is like part of the text in the opening episode. 1600, at that time, Japan is going through that period of time where it's the samurai, it's the shoguns. They're kind of, that style of it has actually, I guess, kind of receded, and it's now a little bit more peaceful than it was historically with the infighting on the country. And instead of having a shogun, they have what they call a taiko, and then they have the 5 daimyos underneath him. And there's like this council. They have now a limited form of government across the country, kind of a fiefdom similar to feudal Europe 500 years earlier. The taiko dies, and the 5 daimyo become the 5 regents. It's the dying wish of the taiko that his son, when he comes of age, will take over. So this was his plan to try and get the 5 of them to not immediately devolve into civil war amongst themselves, trying to figure out who's going to take over. Of course, humans are not going to respect super well the dying wishes of a man, no matter how much they respected him. The further away it goes from his death, right?
Sure.
And so things are uneasy. And at this time, the Japanese are only aware of the Western world through the lens of the Portuguese, which I was not aware of that historically. I was aware of American and British influence. I was not aware of the Portuguese influence. At least that's the way it's presented in the course of the show. So there has been some substantial, but not majority, transition of some Japanese to Catholicism via the Portuguese as they sent missionaries. And the show starts with a British ship barely making it landfall on Japan with almost everyone dead on the ship. And it was part of some convoy of 3 or 5 ships. I forget how many it is, whatever. Doesn't matter. They were all dead. And they are, of course, British sailors. They are Protestants. And the British and the Portuguese are actively in, whether it's a hot or a cold war, I'm actually not entirely sure. But the two sides are very much opposed. Some of that over religion, most of it over empire. And, well, I don't want to say too much about how the rest of it all is going, but you can understand already where those sorts of things would go.
Yes.
Some white guys show up and they're not the same white guys as the ones that they're used to dealing with. And what that means for the wider world, because it seems like the way it's presented on the show anyway, is that the Japanese are kind of really only aware of the Koreans and the Chinese outside of their own island. So
interesting.
It's very much, if you need your fix of intrigue with swords, it's Game of Thrones without the dragons. It's a lot of this is about the political machinations and who's going to get the upper hand and the struggle for power as these different worlds are colliding and all of that. It's a very interesting show. I don't know the guy who plays the lead guy is John Blackthorne, the English sailor. His voice sounded super familiar to me, but I looked him up. I don't know anything. I don't think I really knew anything from him. There might have been 1 or 2 things I recognized, but I hadn't seen.
Let's see if I could pull this person up and see.
The person I would say is the lead Japanese role, the one who...
Oh, this is a miniseries? This is just a one-off?
Considering I don't know how long the book is and I don't know what to look for, it may be the only season. I'm not sure. It certainly doesn't seem like it's going to be long.
It says miniseries on IMDb.
Okay.
So maybe just a 10-episode run, potentially.
That's my guess, but okay. I don't know that for certain. Certainly it doesn't seem like it would be a 5-season show.
I know this guy.
Okay.
Hey, hang on.
I thought I looked him up and I didn't know him from anything, but...
Oh, I know you. John Wick Chapter 4.
Was he in that? Did I miss it?
Yep. Yeah. Are you talking about Yoshi Toranaga, the character name?
Oh, no, yeah, him. Sorry, I thought you were talking about the English guy at first. Yeah.
The English guy you said. Sorry.
Yeah,
Which one? What's his name?
The character's name is, I think, John Blackthorne. No, that's who I was getting to next before you said the miniseries thing. Yeah, no, Hiroyuki Sanada, who I really like, is I think the lead Japanese character so far. Yeah, he's the daimyo Toranaga, and he's he was in John Wick Chapter 4. He was in Bullet
Special
Train.
Ops Soldier 1 in Annihilation.
I didn't see that. Oh, in Annihilation. Oh,
in Annihilation, yeah.
Yeah, he was, I think he's one of the guys on the fucking video.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that.
That doesn't mean anything to me.
But that would make sense why you recognize his face and think like
I thought I recognized his voice.
Maybe he's holding the camera.
Yeah, he might have been the one of the guys who says a line or two, and maybe that's why, and it's just deep within the recesses of my mind. But yeah. So anyway, Hiroyuki Sanada, big fan of him. Like I said, John Wick Chapter 4, Bullet Train. I really liked him in both of those.
Bullet Train is such a good movie.
It is, and I liked him a lot in that. So. And he's great in this too.
Nice.
It's really an interesting show. It's definitely one you gotta be in like the headspace of like I gotta sit down and be ready to read a bunch of subtitles because there's very little English depending on what's going on. There's a handful of things. They're doing an interesting shorthand where all of the Japanese is spoken in Japanese with subtitles versus there's a lot of times that the British guy is talking to other British guys and it's all in English. And then the British guy is talking to Portuguese guys, and that's also in English. But it's also pretty clear that within the world of the show, they're speaking Portuguese. But there's no Portuguese being spoken, and there's no subtitles because, the whole thing is that the Portuguese people are talking to a handful of the Japanese people. The Japanese do not understand the British guy when he speaks in English. They only understand him when he starts talking in Portuguese, which he says, I have a limited understanding of Portuguese because he's able to communicate with the Portuguese people. The Portuguese people are able to communicate with the Japanese who speak Portuguese. What a choice. So that was a little confusing at first until I realized
do Portuguese and keep the subtitles.
Well, I think the point was they cast this one guy and he speaks English. He doesn't speak Portuguese.
Learn.
It took me a couple of minutes in the first episode to realize that's what they were going for. It's not a big leap. It was just one of those, it's an interesting way to handle this.
His translator's broken.
And ultimately, it doesn't matter. The point is, when the Japanese are speaking, they're speaking in Japanese, and it's subtitled. When you hear someone speaking in English, there's a 80% chance they're speaking Portuguese.
That's ridiculous.
It's a little ridiculous.
That's kind of fun. That's actually a reason for me to watch it, just to observe this nonsense. That's cool. I'm glad you're watching that. Is that like the main thing that you got going on right now?
I have one other thing. I am watching the final season of The Bad Batch.
Okay.
There would have been a new episode today. I have not watched it yet. I've watched the first 5 episodes. I want to say. Really solid so far. This is, like I said, this is the final season. It's the 3rd season. I liked the first 2 seasons. What I liked were the ones that were more plot intensive, obviously. Some of the Adventure of the Week ones really could have taken or leave them, but whatever. Overall, I like it. I like this cast of characters. The stakes are ratcheting up. And I'm interested to see how it goes. I'm interested to see the choices they make along the way. Because these are characters who one wonders what their shelf life is and what does that result in the end. Do they have to die? Do they have to sail away into the sunset?
Yeah.
I won't say who or what for anyone who hasn't watched, but of the core 4 of the Bad Batch plus their associated extra people, one of the core members died towards the end of season 2. I won't say who in case anyone hasn't caught up. We'll see what happens with the 3 plus their other associate major characters. But it'll be interesting to see where it all goes. And I've been enjoying it so far. They've been, I would say, 3 of the 5 have been strong to quite strong episodes. The other 2 were fine. They were solid episodes. So, that's moving apace.
Nice. I've got 4 items here that are currently in progress.
Okay.
I am well into the 4th season? 3rd or 4th season of Suits. Really enjoying it. We usually bang out a couple episodes a night, so it's going fast. Because it's like one of those ones where you watch it and like there's just enough at the end of the episode. We're like, well, just okay, just play the next one. Like even if it's too late. So that has really, I mean, like it's like aggressively mediocre. I don't know how to like but it's like there's something about it, like, but it works. Like it's entertaining. Like there's nothing. I feel like I shouldn't be as invested as I am, but I am. I enjoy it. It's a really entertaining watch. So I'm glad we got into that. I think I'm in the 5th season now of Boy Meets World. We've been rewatching that like sporadically, just kind of throwing it on while
you
things
were
are
watching
happening.
That the last time I arrived at your new house.
So we're in the 5th season there. This morning, did you watch all of Boy Meets World?
Oh God, no.
Oh, okay. So for our listeners, for those of you who watched it this morning, I watched the episode with the ski lodge, which is it's just the worst time on that show. It's just so. It's like, first off, I don't know where, like Linda Cardellini, I don't know where you get off just ruining one of the best TV relationships, like casting a shadow over one of the greatest and purest TV relationships of all time.
Did you say Linda Cardellini was on that?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. She's ski lodge girl. Lauren. Ugh. So annoyed by this.
Is that what got her, like...
Corey's a jerk too for what he's done, what he does, but like it's still I'm just so mad about it. I'm so salty. It's like a few episode run of just me being angry. So I have to finish that arc up so that we can get back into the good stuff.
Okay.
Basically, they kiss.
Of course.
And it's not, fans of Boy Meets World, not fans of Lauren.
What is up with ski lodges?
I don't know.
Just, you mentioned it, and the other day I caught part of For Your Eyes Only. Part of that takes place at an Italian ski lodge, and also a couple weeks ago there was an episode of Mr. and Mrs. Smith that almost entirely took place at a ski lodge. So
I would like to spend some time in the ski lodge. I've never been skiing, and honestly, I don't even care if I go skiing. I kind of just want to hang out in the ski lodge. That sounds fun. Sounds nice. A little hot cocoa. Maybe do a puzzle.
I suspect, if you've never been skiing, that picking up skiing for you at your age and, frankly, at your size would be tough, because I skied a bunch when I was a kid and then didn't ski for like over 10 years and then tried to do it at my size. It was a very challenging endeavor.
I'm all for like trying the snow tube. That sounds...
Snow tubing is great. I'm
down with that. That sounds fun. I don't need to be twisting an ankle or a knee or...
I was worried about more than an ankle, I gotta be honest.
Yeah, I'm twisting a knee.
Twisting a knee, exactly. No, ski tubing is great fun. If you have a good place that does like the legit one where you have to like use a lift to get back up.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I want to do that.
That's the thing to do. It's a lot more fun. There's a lot less chance of you twisting a knee. But ski lodge in general, yeah, I understand the appeal. Have some
ski
drinks.
Lodge and snow tubing. That sounds amazing.
Have some drinks.
Yeah,
it's a fireplace. Great time, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that if I get myself back into shape, I feel like I would try to ski. I would be curious to try it. Very low difficulty try, but I would be willing to try. I was always fascinated. I always thought snowboarding looked interesting and fun to me. That being said, I have this like, and I know it's kind of the same thing with skis, like kind of being attached to these boards. But like for some reason, the snowboarding one, it kind of freaks me out.
I tried snowboarding first when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I was not very good at it.
Yeah.
And then I tried skiing, and I was better at it. I was at least adequate. I was able to do it, and I was able to do it enough that I was like actively looked forward to doing it in successive times after that.
Okay.
I had the same concept where it was like, I'm 8 years old. My dad likes to ski. Hey, let's go. Do you want to ski or snowboard? Pick one. Snowboarding seems cool. Tried it. It was pretty difficult for whatever reason. And then the next time, my dad was like, do you want to try the snowboarding again? Or do you want to try skiing? Let's try skiing. That I picked up much quicker.
Nice.
I think that's the gist of what I remember hearing when I was young was like learning how to snowboard is harder, but like mastering it is easier versus like learning how to ski is easier, but actually like achieving mastery of it is very difficult.
Sure. I could see that. Anyway, Boy Meets World in a rough spot right now. I am currently I have surpassed Thor: The Dark World in my MCU Infinity Saga rewatch. So
I
I
don't know
think
if you told me that you tackled the entire saga again.
yeah. Well, I started to. I started when Ian was born. So I'm up. I think my next that I believe that means the next movie is Winter Soldier.
I don't remember the order
So
at this point.
that's good. It's. I think it's going to be better from here on out. There's a. I have really fond memories of the entire MCU.
It could have.
There's a
It
lot
could
of
have failed.
clunkers.
It could have failed in the first like 6 or 7 movies. It could have failed.
If you were to if I were to rewatch it again, I'd be like I'm here for all of the Iron Man movies. I'm here for all of the Captain America movies. Maybe I would watch the first Thor. I'm honestly not even sure. I don't think the Thor movies are not good until Ragnarok. So I don't know. I don't know that I would rewatch them all again until say the kids want to watch them.
So I think the problem is, I think Kenneth Branagh is a pretty decent director.
Yeah,
he's a really good actor.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the reason that they chose him to direct Thor is that Thor is supposed to, I suppose, a somewhat Shakespearean character, and Kenneth Branagh is obsessed with Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that leaning into the Shakespearean aspect of Thor is what makes for a good Marvel movie. And I think when they put that by the wayside, that's when that character really took off, both within the concept of the Avengers and in a standalone movie. The sensibilities that Waititi brings to him are much more in keeping with what Chris Hemsworth's talents are, as well as what the audience wants to see out of their...
I couldn't agree more. I will say, though, I was thinking about it after I got up to this point and I finished The Dark World, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I am now primed for a hell of a run.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is the sweet spot that really took it from a cool thing to this is going to take over movies for the next 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. So excited to watch Winter Soldier again, especially after my previous watch of it a few years back, where I was like, oh, I do really like this.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's that. And then finally, my guilty pleasure for the season, American Idol. We watch it every year. Okay. Or at least the last few years. So it's
fun. I remember you bringing it up, was it last year or the year before, that you were back into it. I was like, yeah.
Yeah. I've picked my winners already. We'll see how it goes. But I think that's it for consumption.
I have one last thing. Very small.
What do you got? You got a one more? You have one more thing for me?
One more thing. Ooh. Columbo style. So they are remaking or HD updating or whatever the fuck it is, remastering. That's the word I think I'm looking for. This is something Brian said to us the other day. Star Wars Battlefront, the legendary
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna have to make that happen.
Okay, so that was the reason why Brian had originally. Brian sent it to me in a different group, and I was like, "Oh, you should be the one to tell Al this because he's going to be very excited about it." And his original question in the previous group was, "Where should I buy this? If it's not crossplay,
Xbox is the answer."
Yeah, well, if it's not crossplay, then that. But if you're going to get it and play it, that's where I would.
Well, we already have plans because we like to get together and hang out, and the guys here. So sometimes. Go out to dinner, go out and get drinks. Sometimes we do a low-key night, play a video game. I mean, I remember telling you we went through the Halo series, we went through the Gears of War series. There was some talk 2 days before that about doing some of the Call of Duty stuff, and this came out and I was like, guys, put the Call of Duty on hold. This is what we're going to have to do.
So, is there a release date on that?
It might be tomorrow, actually.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
I remember seeing in the trailer the 14th. I think it's cool. Tomorrow. It's within the next few days, certainly.
That's exciting. Now, refresh my memory. Battlefront 2 was incredible, right?
Yes.
All right.
I really like certain aspects of both games, but overall, the better experience in general is 2. It's a fantastic game.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be down to play that again.
So the gist of it, what I recall, is I think you can play split screen through the campaign or solo through the campaign. But it sounds like for this, because remember that was during the PlayStation 2 days where PlayStation Network didn't really exist. I know people were doing their own linking through the internet. I was not aware of how to do that at that time. So what they're advertising is 64 player matches.
Nice
Line, that sounds fucking awesome.
That's it. Yeah, that'll be it.
It'll be incredible to watch all of the ways that the quote unquote new Battlefronts were not very good versus these being way more entertaining with 20-year-old technology.
Sure. I'm really curious to see how it holds up.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed. I would have liked a little bit shinier, more updated graphics than what they did. It looks like they just polished it versus like it would have been cool to keep the core gameplay mechanics,
like remodel it,
but remodel the actual graphics of it. I would have thought that would have been a possibility, but I didn't see what the price point for this was. But you know, I'm willing to get it, and plus whatever the price is, you're getting the both games together.
Yeah.
But I love those games. I've spent many hours playing on my own, or playing with my brother, or playing with a friend.
Yeah, I remember, like, I vividly remember playing Battlefront 2 for extended periods of time.
Yeah.
But I do know that I owned both of them, but I don't really have any memory of the first one.
So the first one, I don't think it had an actual campaign. Like, I think there was a series of like missions you could play, but it wasn't like really a story, so to speak.
Okay.
And it was literally just like, go do this map mission, whatever, go do this one. And then there was whatever just go do this map with these factions or whatever, for a big battle. The second one had two different types of story mode. One that was an actual story, and one that was just kind of like an interactive thing. The story mode followed the 501st, those clone troopers and it starts with I think the Battle of Geonosis, and there was a little bit of like narrative leading into each mission. You know, it was like kind of supposed to be like the journal from one of like the soldiers, like talking about what was like happening in the world around them and what they're going into. You would get a mission, you would have objectives, you would have to do it. Eventually you would get into these big battles, but like the point was like there was like actually objective based. It was kind of like a mission a la like a Halo type of style thing, as they would open up things as you were going along with it. And it took you through into the rebellion era, where you're no longer clone troopers, you're now stormtroopers, etc., so on. You know, you'd have the opportunity to play as a hero at a certain point in certain missions, whatever. It was kind of cool, but mostly you were playing as a clone. You'd pick your thing, whatever. You'd get a chance to upgrade based on certain objectives. That was really cool, but only so much replay value. I really enjoyed the Galactic Conquest, which you picked a faction, the two sides are pitted against each other, and it's basically Risk on this video game.
This sounds more familiar.
Because this had much more replay value, because you could pick any of the four factions. You could play either as Rebel or Stormtrooper, or you could play as Clone or Droid. And the computer would have the opposing one, and you would have to pick, okay, I'm going to go to this spot, or I'm going to go to this planet, or I'm going to go to this space battle over a planet. And so there was the space battle missions, or there was the planet side missions. And if the other one's cruiser or whatever was dreadnought was over a planet, in order to take the planet, you had to beat them in a space battle in order to land the troops. Then you'd have to have the land battle to claim the planet. There would be certain bonuses you could earn and apply, whether it be heroes, whether it be improved damage from your weapons, or improved health, or whatever it is. And it was whoever either totally destroyed the fleet of the other, where they didn't have enough resources to build another fleet, or if you could take all of their planets.
Okay.
That was a super fun mode. Even just playing regular multiplayer was great. Bunch of maps, really fun. Most of them were pretty great. I really loved the space battle missions, where you either could destroy the fleet by bombarding it from the outside, or you could board and invade and try and disrupt it from the inside, while the other stuff was going around with the computer. That was super cool. I thought the variation of the way you could try and just take a fighter, Rambo your way through, and start destroying shit. You could grab one of the transport ships, try and land it in their docking bay, because then the computer and you could spawn in their docking bay. Or you could pick a bomber, start bombarding the shit from the outside, take it down. You can dogfight. You could take down their cruisers and shit.
We're good. I'll just purchase it. It is tomorrow. It comes out tomorrow. I'll be buying that.
Did you see what the price is? I'm guessing it's not a full.
I didn't look at the price. Battlefront Classic collection price. 10% off on Steam. Just like $30-ish.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Not even a question. Not even a question.
Put it on my tab. Amazing. Pre-order for $31.49.
Oh, I'll have to take a look at that
weird. Why?
Taxes, whatever. Who cares?
All right. Taxes. Taxes. Who needs them? Turns out a lot. All right. I think with that, it's time for our flick of the week. Dune Part 2, released in 2024, rated PG-13 with a 2-hour and 46-minute runtime. Your IMDb synopsis. Paul Atreides unites with Chani. Is it Chani?
Yeah.
Chani and the Fremen while seeking revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. That's fair.
More or less.
Pretty good. It's good.
Big
synopsis.
picture.
One of the better synopsi of.
Succinct.
Yeah, it's there. Why don't you kick us off with your Toot-length review?
A crowning achievement in proving that the right team can, in fact, film the unfilmable. Denis Villeneuve's inexorable ascent to the top of the game is undeniable. Epic, poignant, and unforgettable, Dune Part 2 checks all the boxes of a standalone movie, a bookend to Part 1, and a near-perfect baton pass to the hopefully inevitable conclusion in Dune Messiah. In short, a masterpiece. 9 out of 10.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, I couldn't. I mean, yours is well said. I got to be honest with you. I scrambled to put mine together.
Was that what you were aggressively typing?
Yeah, and I had like this like eloquent thing typed out, kind of. I feel like trying to reflect what some of the things were that you were saying, and I was like, you know what? Let me take a step back. Why is this a 9?
Fire from the hip.
Yeah, Dune Part 2. It's why you go to the movies. 9 out of 10.
Okay. Also succinct. Maybe to the point of being reductive, but not inaccurate.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, it's too. It would be too hard to capture all of it in that brief amount of words that we try to do here. But it's just. It is. It's just like one of those movies you watch it and you're like, movies are good.
If
like
there
movies can be good.
If there was people who were like, oh, with what I can just watch anything I can want to watch on my home or my phone or my iPad or whatever, there's a lot of movies you can watch that way. I do it too. I don't look down on watching the movies. Mm-hmm. But if there's any part of you that has an inkling of wanting to experience a movie, this is the movie that you want to experience. And you got to experience it. I don't even be like, oh, you have to see it in IMAX. We saw it in IMAX or IMAX adjacent.
IMAX star.
IMAX Jason. This is the type of movie that makes you want to go to the theater. Makes you want to watch it in a dark room with other people.
That's why you go to the movie.
A communal experience on a big screen with big speakers.
Yep.
It's not just watching a movie. You're experiencing it. This is what we all need, and we need to continue to be able to enjoy, even if it's not in the same frequency or way that things have been done in the past. And as much as I'm in support of that Oscar speech where he talked about, hey, listen, it doesn't have to just be $200 million movies. We could make, $10, $20 million movies or whatever. Like, I'm fully in support of his message. But you also have to make a couple of these too. You need... diversify the portfolios, Hollywood. It's not one or the other. It should continue to be both. Or if you want to talk about the spectrum of things, a $5 million movie, a $20 million movie, an $80 million movie, a $200 million movie. You need them all. Figure out the math. Make it so that we want to attend the theater and pay you for it. Make it so that we want to pay you at home too. There's different strokes for different folks. All of it's great. But part of it has to be these events.
But I completely agree. It was also like haven't been to the movies in a while, and like to go out, and we did it right. We did dinner, we had a drink,
dinner and a movie, timeless classic.
Like, what'd you say?
I said dinner and a movie, a timeless classic.
Yeah, it's just perfect. Like it was. it was great. It was just so entertaining to watch. There's not a minute where your attention gets diverted from the screen unless there's 16 people walking through your row.
Just the first minute.
It's just completely captivating. I am I don't know what your engagement level is with the Apple Vision Pro and understanding like what it can do and all this stuff, but I don't really have at this point. I don't really have an interest in getting one. That being said, if I were watching this movie on it, would be the first thing I did.
I feel like it would cause me some sort of existential crisis to watch this sort of movie on that sort of apparatus.
But you could watch Dune on Arrakis.
Adjacent, anyway.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just I'm actually, from the minute I walked out of there, I was like, wow, I gotta see this again. Like I have to do this again before it's gone, because it's gone. It's gone. It's gone.
I would have loved to get in there again. I'm gonna be hazy on some of the details because we watched it almost 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
There's still probably a 50-50 chance my dad will want to go and I'll go. Could even be this weekend for all I know.
Yeah.
Who knows where the world will take us, but I would love to see it in the theater again. I'm going to be super excited to watch it on my TV when that time comes.
Yeah.
But I will never regret having the opportunity to watch it in the theater that first time. Doubly so because I got to do it with like friends and family and all that. Like, it was a cool time.
It's hard to like, I mean, it truly is like it's all of the pieces brought together is what makes the movie as incredible as it is. That being said, I could pick out two very standout things that like really like that are like, these are the things I remember from the movie that like have stuck with me, that I'm like so I was like so amazed by, like really captivated by, and it's not if one of your answers was Austin Butler as Fade Rafa, I'd get it. I agree. I understand. It's not one of my picks. My two picks, it started a week before we saw the movie. The music is insane. I don't understand how it can be so good, but it is so good. It's the thing that I spent the most attention on during the movie. Like, I was like, man, like, it was good while I was listening to it the week up to the movie, but now that I'm hearing it in the theater, like with like all of these speakers, like an actual like effect, it's just,
well, it's two things. It's one, that is that effect of having kick-ass speakers.
When you get to feel it, you feel the music,
and to accentuate that, to accentuate that, the having the contextualization of the scenes that it marries to, because in a literal sense you may feel it from those speakers, but in a less tangible sense, right? You feel music that's that good within your body, whether it be mind, body, emotion, however you want to talk about that. To see that match to what's happening on the screen is part of why you experience this sort of
thing. Oh, it's so good. But so to circle back, it's that, and it's Javier Bardem. It's those two things. Javier Bardem in the Dune universe, just straight up being like your out of touch uncle on Instagram. Like he's just like, or on Facebook, just like it's just too much. But he's so good. This movie should not have nearly as much comic relief as it does in his character.
Yeah, I mean, they play him almost as the butt of the joke, and he's not really comic relief in the book. Like he has some moments where there is humor around that character, but I wouldn't, like, they kind of give him the Gimli treatment in this one. And your mileage with that may vary. I appreciate it to an extent. I think it can be a dangerous gambit because you can go too far and totally undermine the character. I don't think they did in this case.
I don't think so. They definitely they walked up to the line, but they kept it where it like you understand him and the importance of it. So
yeah, I think
a true believer.
The whole Lisan Al Gaib meme that's out there right now is hysterical.
That's funny, right? that was funny throughout the movie, like when he would say that. The thing that would really get me is whenever Paul would do something and he would quote some specific line of text.
As it was written.
Yeah, no, not just that line though, but like he would like say the like, you know, like, and he will awaken from his sleep, like, you know, like, whatever it is, like, and I was just like stop, like when he was clearly dead, and he was like, and Stilgar was like about to like kind of throw in the towel because it was like, oh my god, this all is over, and then when he wakes up, it's like, I never doubted for a second. It was like.
Yeah, and watching the execution of that, you know, the murmured whispers of, you know, like, her was like her tears will bring him back.
That's the
like
line.
like that,
well, she says it though. I think which was kind of a really powerful moment for that scene, was that like, since Chani is not into this whole whatever their version of a Bible.
Well, actually,
fact that
to be fair, they didn't say it at all in the movies, but in the books, it's the definitive religious text is known as the Orange Catholic Bible.
Okay.
So, in a literal sense, it is a Bible.
Yeah. But like the fact that she's like, you know, she's very resistant to it, but then, you know, and there's the whole bit about like what her unspoken name is, or spoken, whatever they call it, whatever her name is, that like, and what it means, which is that like the tier, whatever. I don't remember the exact lines.
It was like the desert.
Yes, whatever you're saying, that thing where it's like basically like her tear is going to be like the thing that brings him back. And like she is so upset and she's furious with Paul for doing what he did and thinking that but then like, and like she can't contain herself because she has such strong emotion for him, and she is going to cry and she is upset and it's going to fall. And like, it's almost, it's like kind of, it's like so like, not bittersweet is too reductive of a term for this. Like, she's like pissed, I feel like, but also relieved, right? Like, she's relieved that he's back, but she's so mad that she played directly into it. Yeah. In the way that like, you know, like a Stilgar believes it's going to happen. And it's, man, there's just something, I think, in the universe, I find I love Stilgar. I find I think I kind of find Chani's character to be the most interesting. I think, I mean, Paul is like obviously interesting and like on this path, but I think her conflict with everything that's going on, and like even seeing it, and like it's not enough because I feel she sees past all of it and like what the implications can be. Yeah. To a degree where it's just really heavy, and in a way that like you wouldn't engage with what's going on like with that much conflict, like unless you were seeing it through her eyes. I don't know. I think that it makes the movie.
Well, you could get swept up in the hero's journey.
Yeah.
If it's not for that character being the quote unquote voice of reason. I think that's the point. I think it's clear enough in the books, considering where they go, that it's the danger of a hero. Like, that's what Frank Herbert's point ended up becoming after all of it. It's the point, it's the part that mostly the 84 version misses. Not to say miss, it doesn't emphasize it enough, because I think the extent of
it goes full hero, sure.
I think really the extent of their analysis of that situation is when he thinks my name is a killing word, and the whole thing with the ridiculous thing where they shout his name and it starts killing people. Like, that I think was supposed to be meta, that like the name of Paul Atreides leads to death, which is what these things are. Like, it's a distilled version of this. Like, it's not like he didn't understand the point. It's just how he chose to represent it.
Sure,
defeats the purpose. I do think it was clever to try and go that sort of meta. It just doesn't end up working, because in the end, it's all like, oh, the crowning achievement, we win, we kill the Harkonnens and all that, and like that was how that movie ends up going ultimately. Versus this one showing the real cost of giving into the sway of becoming the hero. Like, what that there are benefits to it, but that it can come at a terrible price. And like that is what this story is supposed to be about, right?
Yep. So I want to talk about something like, so Paul, I feel like he understands the danger of it for the most part of the movie, like for like the beginning portions of the movie, until he drinks the, what do they call it, the water of life.
Yes.
Until he drinks the water of life, and then like I feel like we have enough context from before that to know that like he did have his concerns of the dangers and the risks, but then kind of goes whole hog for it. And I don't know, and I also know like that the water kind of changes you. Mm-hmm. So like I don't know, like
not kind of.
Yeah, well, so my question then would be like, I would assume that it changed him enough that it's like that those concerns are like, are they gone and he's now just fully bought in, or are they just not showing the side of him that like understands the concerns but realizes that he has something bigger that he has to do regardless, and it's not worth like spending the time on the concerns?
They did an interesting thing in this. Actually, I think Villeneuve has a way of drilling down into the subtext of existing storytelling and revealing it in a more clear way without talking down to you, in my opinion. If you remember our conversation, and I don't even remember the very, very specifics, but just broadly, if you remember our conversation when we did Blade Runner 2049, we had, I forget, did we do the original Blade Runner for the movie, or did we just, for the show, or did we just talk about it? Because I know I've seen the movie twice. I think we did it.
I think we did it. I don't remember if we did it like with 49 or
I don't think no, I think we did them like maybe like a year apart or something like that. Okay. And I remember both of us were kind of whatever on the movie, and I think I kind of even said, I was like, I don't really get the point of it. Like I understood the movie, but I just didn't like get what the big fuss was.
Yeah.
And then we saw 49 and I was like, oh,
yeah.
Okay, now I get it, because I thought Villeneuve did a much better job of explaining. Like, it's so much so that like not only did I fully understand his movie, but retroactively I was like, oh, that's what
like
they
filled
were
in the blanks
getting at with that movie. Whereas like I understood it, but like it just didn't really click to me with full resonance. It's like the whole importance of it. And I thought he did an interesting thing with this one as well, and he had to do a little bit of gymnastics as he was changing the plot a little bit, which was just to work on the timeline of something I talked about with my brother after seeing the movie. So in the book, there's a time jump after he becomes a full member of the tribe. When he becomes a full member of the tribe, rides a sandworm, there's like a 2-year time jump.
Right.
Him and Chani are married. They have a kid. That's when he meets up with Gurney for the first time and all that. And during that sequence, that's when the raid of Siege Tabor happens, and his son is killed.
Okay.
His toddler son is killed, along with many other Fremen, and that's what launches the whole endgame sequence, right?
Okay.
So he has the righteous rage of a grieving father, in addition to now he's fully a part of their tribe, plus the already like carrying the revenge aspect of his family and all that being killed, right? The litany of reasons why he would go about doing all of it. They change those things around here, right? Like he still gets the personal level of like they attack Siege Tabor, like they killed a bunch of people he liked and whatever, all that sort of stuff. But the whole thing was all along that time he was not embracing the destiny because he was afraid, because he saw the images of, and they don't use the word in this movie, but they use it a lot in the book and in the old movie. He sees the jihad in his name, the all-consuming holy war across the galaxy perpetrated by his own supporters. It's the Fremen and all of the other people who adopt the legend of Paul Atreides. And he doesn't want that to happen. And the whole point of the Water of Life thing, right, is before it, because he is the future Kwisatz Haderach, he has the ability to see the future. It's unclear. He sees a million different possibilities. He can't figure out which one's which. He can't figure out what decisions will lead to each ending. But taking the Water of Life, it clarifies and distills down all of these things. He is now able to see very many of the endings and very many of the paths that lead there, and which decisions he should and should not make. So he has the opportunity to weigh the cost benefit of each choice that he made.
Mm-hmm.
And in the book, it's actually not super clear why all of a sudden he goes from, I'm not going to do this, to I'm going to do this, other than the very human characteristic of, oh, they killed my son, and I've barely gotten over the grief of them killing my father. In this one, when he drinks the water of life, like, he is seen very clearly, like, oh, like, I can't, or before that he was saying, I very clearly cannot do this. Drinks the water of life, and it's kind of more like, oh, it's always going to happen, and I'm just going to try and pick the least worst option because nothing else positive is going to come of all of this. And what happens is, right, the Siege Tabber thing, it's like, he's like, oh, I'm going to try and avoid this and this path, and they lead him to that path anyway, and it was the one thing he couldn't see coming, right? Like, he fears the death of Chani, he fears the atomics, whatever. He doesn't see that what's going to lead is the siege on Siege Tabber, and that's the whole thing that tips off the whole thing. So it's an interesting way to distill down very clearly the whole thing is, like, he feels powerless, that even to, like, it was like, it's almost kind of like the what's it called, the Rush song, like, if you choose not to decide, you've still made a choice. Like, he realizes that he's in that situation, so not choosing isn't an option because it is choosing, so I might as well choose what I think is the least worst. But the least worst still leads to a holy war. So the whole point is that being the quote-unquote conquering hero is never going to be bloodless, no matter your best intentions.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I feel like my kind of takeaway from it was, it seems like emotionally he's detached after he drinks the water and he's just doing the things. But it does seem like a combination of characters that we've seen before that, like, is kind of how, like, I explained it to myself, where it's like when Doctor Strange goes and sees a million possibilities, right? So he kind of can do that from what I understand, like, on a whenever basis.
Very similar, yes.
Right. And then maybe, like, combine that with a character like Vision, who is able to calculate because he has all the information. And then a character like, what's the blue guy from Watchmen?
Dr. Manhattan.
But yeah, Dr. Manhattan, who's like emotionally disconnected because there's so much information.
Yeah.
And I feel like that he transitioned to that, and that it explains why he doesn't really give an inch back to Chani, like, throughout the next sequence of the movie.
It's the one thing that I don't know exactly why Villeneuve chose to do this. There's kind of supposed to be a 3-pillar aspect to why Paul is the way he is. He has the Atreides bloodline. He has the warrior training. He has the Bene Gesserit training from his mother, which gives him access to the voice, gives him access to this ability to see the future in its limited capacity. And he was trained as a Mentat, which was those human computers. They entirely sidelined that storyline in the movies. So much so that, like,
they've entirely sidelined Mentats in general, though, right?
Yes, that's what I mean. Because Thufir Hawat gets a couple of scenes in the first movie. He is supposed to be in the final sequence in the second movie. He's not in it at all. Apparently, they filmed those scenes, didn't make the final cut.
Interesting.
The Peter DeVry, the David Dastmalchian character, the Brad Dourif character from the original one, the Mentat that works for Baron Harkonnen, he gets like 2 lines in the first movie. He's a fairly important character in the book. Now, ultimately, even though I don't like it, I can kind of see where he's coming from, reducing his role, because it's great for the world building and for beefing up the idea of how this whole betrayal worked and everything. Ultimately, you can still get those major plot points and character motivations without him. So
yeah,
I understand why he made that change. But those characters, the idea of the Mentats, are really important in the first book. A little less so in later ones, but not totally irrelevant. Is a major, major fact why quote-unquote computers work the way they do in this storyline, because the whole thing is that the backstory is before the events of the first Dune. That's what they call the Butlerian Jihad. They had fully developed AI. It launched this massive war, and a law was made throughout the galaxy. And the whole phrase is, you shall not make a computer in the image of man. Basically, you cannot create a computer that thinks equal to the level of humans. So there are strict limitations on computing power and all that. So they train humans to think like computers, to do the incredibly complex calculations that one would be able to make use of a computer for, the real tangible tool that you want to use. So that's part of the whole thing, is what makes Paul so powerful, what makes Paul capable of being the Kwisatz Haderach that the prophecy foretold, is that he has both the ability to see into the future, which a very limited amount of people have access to, basically only the Bene Gesserit, with the use of the spice, and you pair that with the ability to logically, coldly, calculatingly evaluate the statistical relevance of choosing any one of those paths. That is what makes him that powerful as a character, the Kwisatz Haderach. They sideline one of the three aspects of the character, and it still works within the framework of the movie, but it does rob a little bit of the weight of what that is all supposed to be about.
Yeah, I guess they kind of lean a little bit more into the fact that subtly lean into the fact that he's able to see all of these different paths, and they've spoken about how smart and able he is to calculate. They just haven't like gone in the depths. So like that's why I kind of combined all three of those characters. So I guess I hit the mark, even though I didn't know about that piece of it. Which I mean, credit to the director. It came through. I wasn't sure if I was right though. But you're kind of validating that my theories there.
Yes. So he did have it in there, but I can see how people might miss that because they chose to omit it.
Yeah. That's fair.
Or work around it anyway.
I don't know anything about Dune Messiah. I know you had mentioned that Paul and Johnny have a child in the books that dies. I got the impression from some of the cues in the movie that by the end that she was pregnant. Am I wrong?
I don't know.
Okay.
So that if I were to have a major quibble with this movie, it is how they end the movie. I won't say anything about Messiah if you don't want to hear about it yet. But what I will...
I feel like at this point I'd probably want to wait, either read or watch the movie when it comes out.
Well, I will say one thing. So I am reserving judgment until that movie comes out. But there is something that, theoretically I have a major issue with. And so I don't think this is too much of a spoiler to say, especially if you've seen the 84 Dune, that actually is truer to this part of the story. Him and Johnny are fully together. She may have her concerns or even objections to some of the things she does, but the two of them together, they are married in Dune Messiah. It takes place 10 years later. They're still married. Now, it's complicated because they're, Fremen married, and him and Princess Irulan are legally galactically married. It's not a throuple. The two wives do not get along with each other. Paul does not like, in any way, shape, or form, Irulan. It was purely for the purposes of political marriage. This would not be the first time we've heard in history, and there is a very clear nod to the way European royalty worked in medieval and Renaissance times. That is a marriage of convenience. He loves Chani, and that's his actual wife.
Right.
In Dune Messiah. The way that this movie ends, and without them having the shared loss of their child dying, it seems like they won't be kicking off. I don't know how I just wonder if he increased the degree of difficulty by choosing to end this with her leaving it.
So,
considering the events of Dune Messiah really can't happen without the two of them being married, and that's all I'll say about Dune Messiah.
Interesting. So I kind of got I was curious if I feel like there were some cues that led me to believe that I mean, not obvious enough that I could just say definitively, but led me to believe that she's pregnant by the end of the movie. That I thought maybe that is something that will kind of reground him in a different way. Like it'll add, while I feel like he's emotionally detached because he has all of this information and logic to go on. I thought that maybe that would kind of rebalance him out a bit more if that became the thing and it would kind of reconnect them. But I don't know.
So what were the cues that you were?
There was just so well, there was a love scene, which obviously they were just showing the two characters being like intimate. You know, being together and being intimate. But I feel like every scene that he does, like he like that he throws together, like I feel like it's not like although they seem very calculated, I feel like they say way more than just one thing. So like I feel like there was like that's just a hint that it could be, you know, but let's be clear, they were intimate, right?
Yeah.
Let's be clear, they love or loved each other.
I mean, there's a scene where they're very clearly naked and she's on top of him in a tent, like.
Right, but that's what I'm saying though. Like I feel like you could just say that they're being clear, but I also feel like there may be more to that. Like just let it, like it would make sense. Like you need to understand that that's a thing that was happening because it probably has more weight than just the emotional connection. And then I don't know, just the reactions, certain looks that the characters were giving each other. Like I feel like there was almost like there's a defiance towards Paul from Chani by the end, obviously, especially with the storm away and like they'll look back up as like the kind of like the final scene. But like there's like I feel like there's something that she wants to tell him, and that she's very adamantly not telling him.
Well, there's a few things that they're very adamantly not telling each other that if they leveled on those things, it wouldn't be as tumultuous as it is.
Sure.
Which speaks to two things. One, the gravity of the situation that they're all in. I mean, he just becomes the emperor of the galaxy at the end. And also, they're very young.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well,
they've both been forced to grow up in a lot of ways, but they may not be emotionally mature enough to handle the very adult situations that they're in.
That's totally fair. But like basically what I'm getting at is like I feel like there's enough cues that would make me think that it's a possibility, but not enough that I would be like convinced.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I think that there's some ambiguity there, but what you're reading into it could very well be a trail of breadcrumbs. And considering where the story should go, that totally fits with your hypothesis. I will, without giving up the whole point of what Messiah is about, her getting pregnant with Paul's child is a major factor in Dune Messiah. To say it any more in any other way would start to get into the details.
Okay.
But I can say that safely because like it's pretty important. Like,
okay, cool. That's fine. I feel like
like it does track with you. And so like that could work because that was one of the first questions that Dominic asked me about was like, oh, it's 10 years. Like they both look super young. Even if this movie comes out 3 or 4 years from now, like they're supposed to be like older, not old obviously, but like older. And it's like, they already compressed the timeline of this one. You could conceivably, if we're talking about reconciling the end of this movie with a potential next movie, you could compress that timeline as well. It doesn't have to be 10 years. It could be a year.
Right. He's capable enough to adjust the story that it's just happening more sequentially, but still hit the beats that are important to the story.
I will say to compress it to like, let's call it a year to fit in like a pregnancy at the end of the movie. It doesn't really work in some ways, but this is why I'm not mad about it. At no point has Denis Villeneuve ever shown that he is not worthy of our trust that he's going to be able to get it right.
Yeah.
I am skeptical, but I'm willing to follow him along this path. He has shown he has demonstrated a very clear understanding of the material he's working with. This is a passion project of his. This isn't just that someone threw a boatload of money, although they did, at him. This is a project that he has deeply wanted to do. He has shown even in pruning elements of this, he has done it in a very calculated way to show that he understands and respects this material and has a story that he wants to tell a version of this story he wants to tell. So everything I've said about this is to like why there are potential problems here. I am quite certain he has considered these things before I did.
Sure.
So he has a plan. I mean, he's all along said he has a plan to do one more movie. We'll see if it absolutely happens or not. It looks much more likely
based on the box office. I would argue that it's all the guarantee.
Sure, it's more really just a question of when than if. But that being all said, even if he knows going in, he's got both eyes open, knowing that he's got problems going into the next one. The choices he made, which I understand, which if this were the end of the story, actually, I'm pretty on board with what he did. My only objection is knowing where the story is supposed to go next. And so he has created a level of difficulty for himself that I don't know that I would want to choose for myself. But then again, I'm not an award-winning filmmaker. So
yeah, I got you. I want to go circle back one more time to so the end of the movie towards final, very, very final act, where Paul basically says that he'll marry, he'll marry the princess. He'll take her hand, I think is the way he phrased it. The way that there's like a subtle, it's like, I know it's not supposed to be funny, but it was, I almost laughed because there's like kind of like a throwback look to Zendaya's character, to Chani, and it's like, twist. Like, I'm like, I feel like it's coming, but like the way that it's like, that character doesn't know it's coming. And like, it's almost as if he like verbally says that in the scene, which I got a little bit of a challenge.
Well, it's important because there's a call and response, because right before that happens, he says to her,
I love you. Yeah.
Remember, most importantly is until I draw my last breath, I will always love you.
Yeah.
And there are conversations when that happens in the book. It's never a question that he's not marrying her to set Chani aside. I think maybe I'm misremembering this. It might be a line or a sequence of lines from Messiah, but he outright says it to Erlan. You're my wife on paper. Mm. Don't ever forget that that's what this is. Like, whatever you think or whatever you want in your life, you can live a content life here at my side. That's my wife over there. You're just the one that I need for convenience.
Yeah.
Like, it's never a doubt.
It's a political move. It's nothing more.
Yes. So this makes for juicier drama, which the emotional beats work with the story he's telling. But from like an accounting perspective of the narrative, it's a divergence from the source. And again, that could end up being resolved in a way that still works. I just don't exactly see how. I need some spice or some water of life to be able to see how this path leads to the endpoint it needs to go to.
Sure.
I will say the only other small objection from this movie is that they did not give me my favorite line from the book, a line that I called a line or two before it happened on the page, which is to say, when he talked about, and they still reference the same sequence, and it's a poignant point that Paul makes, but basically he says, when it becomes clear that the Harkonnens and in fact the Emperor are directly going to come to try and snuff him out as he is drawing them into his own plot, right? As he's laying the bait. Mm-hmm. He says, the person who can destroy a thing truly controls the thing, right? Mm-hmm. But in service of that point, in the book, he says, talks about the importance of the water of life and of the spice, and he says, and what's the opposite of the water of life? And I remember reading that, and my mind was, he's going to say the water of death, isn't he? And in the next line, he goes, the water of death. And that's actually the specific mechanic by which he plans to hold hostage the entire spice production, is he's like going to create essentially what is a poison pill for all spice production across the planet. It's basically like, if you come and do this, the last act I will do before I die is I will make sure that you will never get one shred of spice off this planet ever again.
Right.
So it's an incredible gambit. It's essentially like a suicide pact with them. You're going to come down and fight me on my terms. You're not just going to come and drop a bomb on my head. You know what I mean? It's an incredible gambit. Also, that goes into more of the technical aspect, which they tease out for a very long time in the books. I don't think they ever addressed it at all in these movies. I'll ask you, do you know where the spice comes from? Yeah, they didn't address it in the movie.
No, I just thought it was like a natural occurring element on Arrakis. I don't know.
Well, natural to an extent. The worms produce the spice.
It's like worm sweat?
Essentially, yeah, it's a secretion from the worms.
Okay.
It's a symbiotic...
that makes sense because
it makes
the
sense.
water of life is blue. Taking in the spice makes your eyes blue. I would assume, that would make sense that it would be something from... Okay.
So they never talk about it in the movie. I forget exactly how and where in the book they actually...
So he's going to kill all the worms if he needs to.
Well, no. Basically, what he was going to do is... So they talk a little bit more about the mechanic in the book, although they did a decent job of covering in the movie. The whole thing with like the taking of the water of life, the fact that it is a poison. It's not poison in the sense of like a designed poison, but functionally it is a poison to most people. Yep. Although not mostly to the Fremen. Actually, there's a whole sequence that I'm pretty sure they cribbed off of for the Matrix. What's the second Matrix movie?
Reloaded, that's
the one. You know, remember the whole orgy scene?
Yeah.
There's one of those in the book in Dune.
Okay.
There's a whole sequence when Jessica passes her test. The whole thing is that when a new, like, revered mother is born, or whatever the hell they were calling her, like...
Reverend Mother,
whatever it is. Like, the whole siege celebrates in, like, a drug-addled orgy, essentially.
Okay.
And so the whole thing with, like, because of her Bene Gesserit training... They deal with like the way that Carrie Elwes' character in The Princess Bride does. They deal with learning how to not get poisoned.
Yeah, and
so she's actually able to change the poison within her. There's like a way that her biology is able to alter the poison so that it's not toxic to her in the same way. And Paul is capable of doing the same thing because he's the Kwisatz Haderach. And so the whole thing is like he was going to take the water of life and turn it into the water of death, and it would basically like poison all spice production on the planet.
Okay.
So I don't remember the specifics of how exactly that would end up working on the large scale, but that was the gist of the whole thing. Was like,
gotcha.
My poison pill is I will literally turn this poison and destroy and taint all spice on the planet. And it's a whole thing like all of the outsiders don't understand. It's just like, yeah, spice is a natural resource like iron or gold or whatever, right? It's not. Only the Fremen know that the worms produce the spice. They also feed on the spice. It's this whole cycle, or maybe not the full-size ones, the little ones, the ones that they use for the water of life. I think maybe they fed on it before they became a full-blown worm, when they were essentially like a larva before they become a full-blown worm or whatever. Okay. They feed on the spice. So it becomes this whole circle of life thing.
I got you.
And it's one of their most tightly kept secrets, because the whole thing is they realize if anyone ever realizes that not only are the worms, so that's why the worms attack the miners, because it's
for their babies.
Yes, that's exactly it. And so one of the Fremen's biggest fear is that someone is going to take a worm off the planet and then be able to make their own spice.
Okay.
They hold the keys. It's a very uneasy truce, which we see over the course of these two.
Gotcha. Interesting. I'd be curious how they caught that baby worm.
I don't remember if they go.
Like, are there mechanics to that?
Well, I think the whole point is like when they're in like the quote unquote larva phase, they're not as intense to deal with.
Sure, I get, but like, are they just on the surface?
Actually, if I remember correctly, I want to say part of the thing is that once they realize about this whole life cycle thing, they actually kind of actively like shepherd them, knowing that that's their meal ticket, that allowing them to come and mine a certain amount of spice, like having a certain amount of trade within the planet, it's in their benefit to allow or to maintain the health of the worm population. Gotcha. Plus, once they make their discoveries about the water of life, knowing that they need one of the, like the people, like they always want to have a certain amount of them on hand so that they can extract the necessary amount of water of life, which they only have a certain amount of need for, obviously, but they don't want it to run totally dry. They always need to have a certain amount available to them or whatever. So it becomes like the whole point of the first book really is the starting point of the first book was ecology. Frank Herbert, before he was an author, was some sort of surveyor for some government agency, and he goes to evaluate the dunes near the coast in Oregon, I want to say, or Northern California, something like that. And at some point he sees like how they keep the dunes intact so they don't get wiped away in the wind and all that. There are certain like desert grasses that grow that create this loose network of roots that allows the dunes to stay a certain level of intact so they're not totally wiped away. And watching what would seem like a barren area actually have its own version of a thriving ecosystem, if you really look closely, is what inspired him to write the first book. And he starts including other things like a hero's journey and sci-fi aspects and political intrigue to what started with conservation and ecology. That was what his first interest was. And they don't talk about it a ton in either versions of the movies. They talk about it a lot more in the books. It takes them a long time to get there, but they talk about it a lot. Is the reason that the Dr. Kynes character is important. Well, in the book it was a man, in this movie it was a woman. That character's father was the first imperial scientist that was fully assigned to them, who was adopted into, because he understood and appreciated what the Fremen were trying to do. They were trying to terraform this planet in secret, which meant work that would take hundreds and hundreds of years with the support of the Empire was going to take thousands of years done in secret by the Fremen. And he was helping them because he was an ecologist, and he was going to teach them how to create sections of this planet that would have sustaining biospheres.
Mm-hmm.
It's an incredibly esoteric and complicated situation that leads into, we're talking about guys with knives and shields and worms and spice and spaceships and atomic bombs and lasers, and
that's kind of cool though, because it's like it's like all of this, like there's all of this backstory that like sparks this concept, and he writes this story in this book, and like the thing that was most interesting to him, or maybe like the spark of inspiration, ends up just becoming like the MacGuffin for these movies.
Yes.
So it's really it's kind of funny.
Literally watching some desert grass on a sand dune on a beach in the Pacific Northwest led to him writing about, by the end of this, or not even by the end, by halfway through the story, about religious prophecy and political intrigue and sociology and politics and religion and all of this nonsense wrapped up into one. It literally just started with he saw some cool grass on some sand.
Yeah, that's funny. That's awesome. I kind of love that. I want to talk about a couple of these characters real quick. Or I mean, we'll try to we'll keep it brief, but we'll try to get into as many of them as we can. But I remember, when the news came out, I remember seeing trailers to the movie, and hearing more and more about it, like at like different points in time. But somehow managed to completely remove from my memory until the moment he was on screen that Christopher Walken was going to be the Emperor, which was just just such a treat to have that show up. Christopher Walken being the least Christopher Walken ever.
And yet still being eminently Christopher Walken.
Yeah, it's an art. It really is. But he's like, that was, I mean, like it was all, he's always awesome. It was kind of cool to see like his, like the fear in him, like once it starts like getting underway. I think one thing that was really interesting is I feel like on a day-to-day basis, you think about like things that are going on in the world, or like you think about, whatever. We won't put names to anything, but like you're like, oh man, if there were a way to just stand up to this power that be and be like, no, Right, and that's kind of that is what Paul does. He's got.
I hear what you're saying, and your military might and years of legal precedents say that X should happen, but no.
Yeah.
How about that? Try that on for size.
Yeah. And Paul, like, he's successful in running this scheme, and you're no longer in power. I am. Kiss my ring, bitch, and let's move on.
Literally,
right? And yeah, and that's like the line. But he's like, but he does that. But I think the other side of it, it's like not seeing the rollout of that. You said no, and the people that believe you or follow your same train of thought, they rallied up behind you. They said no. They were like, let's take this chucklehead out of power. We are assuming
that's not used enough. We don't use that enough in society.
We are assuming control, and then everybody else went no, and I was like, oh, I would you conceptually you're thinking this is a pretty bold move. If they're able to pull it off, it would stand to reason that maybe they would get behind him, but they don't. They're like, we do not recognize anything that just happened down there. Didn't see it, didn't happen.
So that is another thing. As much as I said is he tipped off some potential issues for himself in making the next movie. That was another one of those things where I actually think he did a good job of cutting through some of the clutter to give you a clear indication, because the way the book ends, it doesn't sound like anyone has anything to say against Paul. And so then how that turns into a holy war that leaves billions dead becomes very confusing to me. Showing it in this way, while a slight departure from what is on the page, is thematically actually a really good fit for what happens. Is the whole point is there are some people who fall in line. They want to see a new rise. They weren't happy under the former emperor. There's a lot of them who are like, you don't just get to come and say, I did a duel and I'm the emperor.
Right.
What this really means is the other guy isn't the emperor anymore, and we're all going to try and grab whatever we can reach. And
that message is clear without saying any one delivered line. That all of that comes through.
So I actually think he did a much better job of clarifying the conditions that lead to the Atreides jihad.
Yeah, it's that whole. I mean that whole third act. I haven't read the books. I started the first one, but it was. I thought it played out so well. I was like, man, it was exciting. It was really just well executed. Fade Ratha.
Yes.
Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
They did a really good job of being like, let's introduce this character and make you uncomfortable immediately so that you know who he is.
Yep.
It's like, cool. Got it. Let's stay away from you. And then it's just like, I don't know that they necessarily. I feel like I don't know that they necessarily did a good job conveying that he. I feel like he's kind of set up. He's like what do they call him? There's a word for it, but he's basically. I guess they did not a good enough job, but he's second in line or next in line.
So he's the Baron. He basically it's Baron in waiting. Because Baron Harkonnen does not have any formally recognized children. He has no direct blood heir. He has these two nephews.
Okay, so they're both their brothers?
I believe they're half brothers, but yes.
Okay, all right. I was a little confused about that.
I believe that's what it was, and they're both his nephews, and he picks one to be his heir, and that's why he has the title Baron. It's basically, you're the next Baron when that title comes around. It's just meant to be kind of an honorific to recognize where his place in society will be, even though he doesn't at this exact moment have a place.
Right. So with all of those players off the board, is there a successor that we know about at least from the movie's perspective?
Now that all the Harkonnens are dead?
Yeah.
No, the Harkonnen line essentially ceased to exist.
Okay, cool.
Well,
interesting.
Hang on. It essentially ceased to exist. Yet, I believe it was conveyed fairly obviously through the movie.
She's pregnant.
She's pregnant with his child.
So
I will say this: it was a major disappointment for me from Frank Herbert. That doesn't go anywhere.
Huh.
Now, I've only read
Interesting.
4 of the 6 books, I think. It's entirely possible that the 5th or 6th one will. I will say this. I don't know if this is or isn't a spoiler. You tell me. The first 3 books take place across a timeline that's pretty recognizable.
Okay.
And between the 3rd book and the 4th book, there's a 3,000-year time jump.
Cool.
So, I'm sure there's some Harkonnen blood out there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like a landed titled Harkonnen, to the best of my knowledge. Like, that line ceases to exist. And really the whole point of that is, actually, read into this however you will, but like a couple of times, like they talk about the Bene Gesserit, like in the first one she says to Jessica, you were only supposed to have daughters.
Mm-hmm.
By hook or by crook, the Bene Gesserit can have whatever they want to have as far as children go.
I got that impression based off what they were saying. But.
Yeah. This is the whole suspension of disbelief thing. Mm-hmm. So, more likely than not, my supposition would be, not knowing the final 2 books and suspecting that they don't matter for this specific storyline, she probably had a daughter. It probably became some nameless Bene Gesserit. Really what it goes down to, and they talk about it a little bit in the movies, much more in the books, a lot of it's about the Bene Gesserit preserving bloodlines because they're distilling certain traits that they want to see carried through. And that's the whole point of them trying to design over the course of like thousands of years to get to a Kwisatz Haderach.
Sure.
Now, as much as they were distilling it and thinking they were moving that way and trying to predict when it would be, they were never 100% sure which generation it was going to show up in. Like, every generation there was like, these are the potential ones we think could possibly be our candidate. Oh, it didn't work. Okay, one step closer. We'll try again this cycle. You know what I mean? Like, that's how that all worked, basically.
Mm. I got you. Yeah,
in the book, when it happened, I thought for sure Dune Messiah or Children of Dune would be... I thought we were going to get a return of the Harkonnen Atreides rivalry, considering we knew that there was a probable Harkonnen child out there. Doesn't come to fruition.
Interesting. So okay, and that's all. That makes sense. I kind of got the impression that it could go either way. Like, either this character could come into play at some point, like down the line, or I thought the other side of it could be that it's more of like a showing like kind of a blind spot on the Bene Gesserit side, where it's like they see where this is go. They understand. They know what the Harkonnens are doing with the Emperor. They know like how this is all playing out. So the assumption being that the Harkonnens are kind of going to be taking power over, like being like the lead of the houses, and then so like assuming they want to keep that bloodline going is why she's pregnant. But the fact that like they get killed off, like I feel like they didn't see any of that coming, and therefore it doesn't really matter that she's pregnant, because the Harkonnens are like it's too late for that. Like, they're not going to be able to be something now.
Yeah, I mean, what it came down to is, yeah, I mean, she calls it. She's like, basically the way it is, your father fucked up. He can no longer be emperor. We're either going to have an Atreides emperor or we're going to have a Harkonnen emperor, because this is going to come down to the two of them eventually, which is what happens, right?
Yeah, and so they try to like orchestrate the
whole thing.
At least that one side of it.
The Bene Gesserit oversee a lot of the marriages, when there are even marriages, because the whole thing is Leto never got married.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. If they're like, why
Jessica is his official consort, concubine, whatever. Yeah, and Paul is his recognized son. There's no question about that. But technically, she is not his wife. She is not Duchess Jessica. She's Lady Jessica.
Right. But and does he have a marriage of convenience that I'm not aware of?
He doesn't. He says one line in the first movie. He talks a little bit more about it in the book. The whole thing, it's like his great lament. I should have just married you. Mm. Instead, I took you from the Bene Gesserit at their suggestion because I needed someone to give me an heir, but I always left myself open for an official marriage if it would help solidify politically. And no such marriage ever showed up. And so his regret is that he didn't ever just marry her.
Gotcha.
Because she's essentially his Johnny.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Stellan Skarsgård is an incredible actor.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just blanket statement there.
Very much appreciate him in his work.
I also watched The Dark World a few days after this, and the juxtaposition of him being this just disgusting monstrosity of a horrible human, or horrible whatever being, and then him just being this adorable scientist that's losing his mind and constantly in his underwear. It's just really funny.
He's got range, man. He's a really good actor.
Yeah, there's a great scene in The Dark World, which is the sentence that nobody ever says, when they figure out what's going on and they have a plan, and he goes, "Well, I better go put some pants on." and then you just realize in that moment that he hasn't been wearing them this whole time, and it makes it that much more funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, I really he is. The character is intentionally grotesque. It's I mean, I'm only a couple chapters into the first book, but they make a point of describing him that way.
Oh, are you reading it right now?
Yeah.
Nice.
I thought I told you that. I downloaded it. I figured I'd give it a try.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was really fitting that he die on the stairs like a stuck pig. I was like, well done. Really good visual storytelling there. God, that scene when he's eating, when he in the first movie, when he's just at the table, just slopping down food. It's just.
It looks like when you're at Thanksgiving dinner, and it's all this food is so delicious, and I need more of it, even though it hurts. Mm-hmm. It feels like every meal is that for him. Yeah, they really convey that in that scene while Leto is lying naked at the end of the table.
Yeah.
For a guy who takes a bath in oil and vinegar every day, you think you'd be more familiar with salad.
It's a little vinaigrette back to tank. So strange. I'm equally annoyed by and love the zero explanation of certain things like that in this movie. I had asked you, I was like, is it black and white because their sun, something to do with the sun? And you were like, yeah, they mentioned something about a black sun or something like that. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I mean, it was enough. When I saw the trailers for the movie, I thought maybe it was going to be some sort of flashback sequence.
That's what I thought,
or some alternate timeline thing or whatever it was. But it very clearly went scene to scene, and it was sequential. And I was like, what's going on? And then they were inside and it wasn't like that. And then they were outside and it was like that again. It's okay, got it.
Well, not just that, but they showed specifically it looked normal and someone stepped into the sunlight and it became black and white. So I thought that was really cool. So I read something after we saw the movie. Denis Villeneuve talking about it. I'm asking why he chose to do that. Because it's not, I don't remember them ever saying anything like that in the book. But what they do talk about is how harsh and terrible their society is, and how that helps to lead to them being these horrible, detestable people. And so he wanted to come up with a visual way to represent that, them living in a world so alien to what we would be accustomed to in human society, and how that would lead them to be this. And the way he chose to artistically represent that is that this world, everything's inverted, it's flat, there's no color, it's black and white, and the choosing to do it in this way to just show how separate they are from what you would expect from human behavior, and that's why they're able to behave and look so distinctly different than what we're accustomed to. And they talked a little bit also about the shooting. They shot it all in infrared, I guess, and they had basically it was talking about some of the technical stuff going into it, where when they went down the rabbit hole of pursuing this, once they first discussed it, they made this choice, whereas when he gave his marching orders to the cinematographer and when they were getting ready to do it, it was if there's any questions or any going back, it has to be now, because once we shoot it, we can't colorize it afterwards. Once we do this, we're locked into doing this. So I thought that was a really cool way to talk about all that.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's so eerie and awkward and weird and captivating because it's so unsettling. It's unsettling. That's what it is. The whole thing. And, which is it's cool. It's well done. Really interesting choices made. The Austin Butler's makeup for this. So he's wearing a bald cap.
Mm-hmm.
It's not his head's not shaved, and it goes all the way over his eyebrow.
Okay.
It's like this one piece like thing that goes all. And I was like, that's like, first off, it's really impressive that it looks very much like he has no hair.
Yeah.
Second off, I heard listening to him on the Graham Norton show talk a little bit about it, how it's like he has to sit like very still, and it's like 3 or 4 hours of like application to get him to look like that. And if it's just even slightly off, he can't open his eye.
Oh,
no,
geez.
he can't open his eye. It's like, that's insane. And his show, there's like multiple people on from different things at the same time.
Yeah. I've seen little clips of it.
Yeah,
it's a cool. I never watched the show, but it's a cool concept.
Yeah, Olivia Colman goes, How long are you doing the makeup for? And it's like, oh, it's like 3-4 hours. And she like immediately goes, oh, no. I thought that was so funny. But I can't imagine sitting there and having that put on, and then having to work and do your scenes like with that on. It's kind of crazy.
Well, I always think about that whenever they talk about any of these things, like whether it be like, I remember seeing the stories about like Michael Chiklis when he was the Thing, or like like Jim Carrey when he's the Grinch, and they're like, yeah, I sat in the chair every day for 8 hours as they put this on, and it's like, so how many hours are you shooting, and how many hours are you sleeping? Because that doesn't seem super feasible.
Well, I feel like I've heard stories about like people sleeping in the makeup chair. Like, because it takes so like, and that's like where they're getting some like rest. So that's a possibility, I guess. But like, my goodness,
I'm just picturing like popping a sleeping pill because you're about to sit in the chair for 8 hours, and it's like, I'm just gonna sleep. You do what you got to do to me.
Yeah, and then you wake up and you see yourself. You're like, Doc. Oh man, that's wild. Yeah, I feel like it's funny. I almost every time he's on screen, every time Fade Wrath's character is there, it's like it's unsettling and he's creepy, and I like don't know what he's gonna do next. And he's just killing people like for fun, like for nothings.
I appreciate that. Like the only thing in common that Raban and Fade Wrath have is that they're willing to just mercilessly kill an underling to prove a point at any time.
Yeah, but it makes it so unsettling. I almost wish like
also unsettling and incredible. He's just doing an impression of Stellan Skarsgård, and it's spot on.
Yeah,
it's incredible, actually.
Yeah,
because he's really got like Stellan Skarsgård's got a very distinct voice, like pretty much instantly recognizable. And literally, the first time Austin Butler opens his mouth, I was like, "Oh my god, he's doing an impression of Stellan Skarsgård. That's incredible."
So that's another thing. Like this guy can, like, he like lives in the accent, and then he gets stuck with it until he does the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, he claims that he doesn't because he was like, I don't still have an Elvis accent while saying that in an Elvis accent.
Yeah. So I watched a reel of his like talks with him over the course of X number of years, and you see him. It's like, this is what his voice was, and it never gets back there. Like he doesn't. His voice is lost. Like he is like whatever the next thing is.
See, we've talked about that a few times before. I've said these guys who do way different voices all the time, I wonder if they lose their voice. He's the one. He's really lost his. I mean, I've said I'm pretty sure Tom Hardy doesn't remember what his voice is, but
yeah, it's true.
Gary Oldman, I think, keeps at least within the ballpark of it.
Yeah,
but I don't think Tom Hardy remembers his own voice, and it sounds like Austin Butler hasn't either. I'll have to listen to him talk. I mean,
I see if I can find that clip for you because it's really interesting to watch.
I'll have to go back because I'm not saying it was his very beginning of his career because he might have done some work as a child, I think, right? But I saw one of his first roles like as an adult. It was the Shannara Chronicles. It's been 10 years or more since I watched that show. Since it came out, whatever it was like 2 seasons of the show. I remember how his voice sounds more or less, but I would like to hear a scene from that just to refresh myself and compare it against him doing an interview like currently and see what that sounds like.
Yeah. It's if I send this thing to you, you'll see. It's interesting. It's really cool to see. Who haven't we? So, Lady Jessica, who is now the Reverend Mother of the Fremen.
Yeah.
That's how it works. You get one.
Well, anyway, it seems like that, like, band of them at Siege Tabra does, because wasn't there other women in the South continent?
Well, that's where she went.
Yeah.
And then became the Reverend Mother there, right?
No, she becomes before she leaves. Remember, because that was the whole thing. She drinks the thing, and the other one dies, and then like they send her on the.
Oh yeah, you're right. Afterwards. You're right.
But I couldn't remember. She might be the one for the Fremen. She might be. I don't remember.
Okay, but so she drank it, didn't die, evolved into, I guess, seeing more than she did before. Is it the same thing? Like, does she see multiple paths too, or does she just see with more clarity the future? The current future, I guess.
Yeah, it gives her clarity, but she doesn't have the same capability to see the future. Like, she might have some limited, but it's not even within orders of magnitude of what Paul can. It's not part of her to do that. But more importantly, it awakens Aaliyah within her and allows her to communicate with her.
That was pretty cool.
Psychically. Mm-hmm. And that'll be
I like the random times where she just like talks to the baby and the person in the room is like, what the hell is going on?
Yes. I think it was an interesting choice. It was probably a more realistic choice, because if you remember from the original one, they had like a 6-year-old girl running around killing people and like an adult woman dubbing over her voice.
How long is the original movie? Because I feel like there's at least 16 hours worth of movie there.
I don't remember. We can look up the runtime if you want.
I'll look it up. Go ahead.
Okay. But I thought that was an interesting choice because it's not super feasible and believable. It is true to the book that, and the thing is, like, they had like a 6-year-old doing it in the 1984 movie, but the book, she's like 3 years old or something like that.
Sorry, Dune, the 1984 Dune movie is shorter than part 2. It's 2 hours and 17 minutes. And somehow it does a lot.
It does a lot. It does not enough. It does too much. Yeah. All at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, choosing not to do the Aaliyah thing ultimately keeps this movie somewhat grounded, if it's possible for this movie to be grounded.
Sure.
I did like the way they pivoted, getting the dream sequence with Anya Taylor-Joy. I thought that was cool.
That was cool.
She's a major character in Messiah, and Children of Dune for that matter. So I really hope they hang on to Anya Taylor-Joy to do that. I suspect that'll be the case. You don't cast her for that.
Yeah, I would assume
She's not going to be back. The Aaliyah thing is interesting. They spend a lot more time talking about it in Messiah. It's super important that she was pregnant when she drank the water of life, because this will introduce what some people refer to as an abomination, because she has the mental acuity of an adult from the time she's not even an infant. She's a fetus.
Yeah, because she's able to just converse with.
Yes. And it's like a reverse Poor Things.
Interesting. It's the Benjamin Button.
But, and I won't spoil this part of it, it's not just that she has an acuity of an adult well beyond her age. There are other things that are awakened within her, and more on that when they make the next movie. It's a little tease.
Okay.
Super important.
I would like to know why Jessica drinks the water of life and then goes full, like, Post Malone.
With the face tattoos? Yeah. It's an artistic direction by the director.
I was like, maybe she's got all these things to remember now, so she's like full on Memento style.
Should say Memento. She's tattooing it to remember.
I can't remember how it went down. Gurney killed Rabban.
Yeah.
Right? How did he do it? What was the sequence of? I don't even remember what happened.
Oh, when they're in like a full blown rout as the Fremen are taking the city, Raban I think is trying to flee,
Yes. Okay.
and Gurney calls him out. Raban recognizes him, and they duel, and it doesn't go well for him. The whole thing is that he's a bully. He's big and physically imposing, but he's not
a little bitch.
actually.
He runs away. All he does is run away.
Yeah, he's not actually about that life, and so when he fights someone who's actually a good fighter, doesn't really hold up.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. I don't like. I don't actively dislike Josh Brolin, but I don't know. There's something I'm not a huge fan, but that being said, like I like a lot of the characters that he's played.
He's had a weird career because like he's had some really iconic roles, and I've liked him in some of those roles. And I feel like I don't know any of the other work he's done.
But like even like that's the thing. Like when he's Cable in Deadpool 2, right? And he's good and he does it well and he plays the butt of the joke really well and it works, but for some reason I'm kind of wishing it's somebody else, and I feel bad. Like I actually don't know what it is that I'm not a fan of. It's like not as
I thought he did a great job as Thanos.
He did.
I can't imagine that role being anyone else at this point.
I can't. You know what? You're right, but I can't. Thanos, the actual like character model, is so far. Like, yes, it looks like him, but it's so far removed from him. Maybe it's his face. Maybe that's what I don't like.
There's times where he like makes certain faces that I kind of feel like Rob Riggle in Step Brothers, where I'm like, if you don't fix your face, I'm going to fix it for you.
Yeah,
it's not all the time. It's just specific roles, specific angles that they shoot him at, where I'm like, just a moment of,
you know what?
I don't like your face.
I think I know what it is. He's constantly or at least in, as Thanos, as Cable. He's like this, and even Gurney, like except for like maybe a couple of scenes, he's just like this brooding character, and I find that so exhausting. And that's not his fault. That's the character that he's playing.
Yeah,
so
I was saying
that's what my problem is.
It can be. I don't think he's overstayed his welcome on that front, though. I mean, maybe he's just been typecast there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
I love this little guitar sequence.
Yeah, well, the song was funny. I forget the words now, but I know there was one line that cracked me up. It was something about drinking his own piss.
Yeah.
He's good for that role. That role was the Patrick Stewart role, and both of them played it slightly different, and I like both of them. And they gave Josh Brolin more to do. But I liked him in this role. I mean, to me, he'll always be Thanos. Sure. Or even if you want, he'll be the older brother in the Goonies. But I like him in this. He plays that like older brother bordering on being your surrogate father type of role, and I don't know. It's kind of an interesting role.
We've talked a little bit about like Johnny's character and Paul, because we've talked a lot about like the movie as a whole. But I think I feel like Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet have like really good chemistry.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like it makes their those two characters so believable. Zendaya is a really good actress, and I feel like anything that I've seen her in, I've been like she's one of those people that I feel like becomes the character. It's like I have no concept of who this person is because like you're that character, and then then she's playing another character. Like I don't even remember the last character because you're this character now. Like it's like kind of like a transformation. So it's pretty awesome.
I liked her in this role. I like her in Spider-Man. I mean, I guess
I've only seen her in a few episodes of what's that show? Kim was watching it.
Euphoria.
I can't. Yeah, I saw her in a few episodes because I just like happened to be in the room while it was on. I was like, "This is like another." I'm like, "How is this the same person?" Like, it's good.
I've never watched the show, so I haven't seen her in that. I'm curious to see this tennis movie that's sweeping up the gossip with her in it. It'll be interesting to see her playing like an adult role in a normal-ish situation, like versus this one, which is very much a fantasy setting.
Right.
Yeah, I like her. I think she's a good actress, so we'll see where her career takes. I'll be watching her career with great interest. Quote the Phantom Menace. Because I do like her, and I'm curious to see where she goes with all of this.
Yeah.
Her and Paul are really good together. Like her and Timothée,
the boy.
the boy.
Timothy.
I think he plays most...
Timothy.
Timothy. I think he's pretty restrained in the first one, and that's what that calls for. I mean, there's times in the original one where I think Kyle MacLachlan is just an actor where like it's almost like he's devoid of emotion, and that is actually the point of the character. Is him performing what he's being directed to do, and letting him explore the space a little bit more. To quote Christopher Walken, gives him a chance to show a little bit more of his range in this role, and I thought he really nailed it, culminating with that sequence where he rallies the Fremen at that council thing. I mean, that was really strong, where he's challenging all of them, and he finally takes on the mantle and kind of seals his own fate with all of that. I thought that was a pretty powerful scene. So
yeah, I agree. And then Princess Irulan. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about that character. I feel bad for the character. I feel like she's caught in a weird, she's like a victim of circumstance, by being the princess in this, at this time while all this stuff is going on. I don't necessarily think that, I don't get any particular, for lack of a better term, bad guy vibes from her, that you get from the Emperor. But yeah. I don't know if that's just because it hasn't come through yet, or if that is the case, and you kind of...
She's dealt a tough hand, because the Emperor only has daughters, and they're all pretty much immediately told they're going to become Bene Gesserit. But they're expected to be the daughters of the Emperor and eventually, a queen. Or empress, whatever. Or, marry some other lord or duke or baron or whatever and be a part of exerting the influence of the imperial throne.
Right.
She is, as the Reverend Mother says, or whatever her official title is, she is supposedly the best of her students, or she takes most to the teaching, but she doesn't exactly have the ambition of a lot of the other Bene Gesserit who are amongst the higher...
It seems more academic.
That is the role that she takes on. She is essentially the foremost historian, because her passion, her fascination is in studying history and watching how history repeats itself, and she's trying to become in her own way an advisor, not in the style of the Bene Gesserit, but more in the sense of a student of history.
Okay.
But she's caught up in the crossfire of all of this. She's still expected to be the daughter of the Emperor. She's still expected to be the foremost pupil of the Reverend Mother.
Right.
Which means she keeps getting pulled into this palace intrigue, whether she wants to or not. And then she is traded like an asset in securing peace in this time of turmoil by marrying the new Emperor. She's not given a ton of agency, so from that we can sympathize with her. She is also... She participates as well. Okay. So she's a flawed character, but one who is not outright villainous the way that you alluded to at the beginning of this. The time that she has spent being an unhappy bride leads to her not finding healthy outlets for her resentments and frustrations. I'll just put it that way.
Okay, gotcha. Interesting.
She becomes a more important character in the next story.
Okay, cool.
Because frankly, they don't give her a ton to do in this.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure if it was if there's more that I should... it seemed like it was something that is just a peek at the person that you'll then see a little bit more of later, which is what it seems like it's going to be. So that's all well and good. I feel like we touched on pretty much all the characters at this point. The one thing, I'm usually not oh man, the effects on this movie are so good and so cool, but
they were.
There's no shiny except for where it's supposed to be shiny.
Yeah,
I think is how we described it. This past week.
That big globular ship that the Emperor rides down, that's supposed to be shiny, and it is.
It's just you have to take when when the current DC universe is doing something. You're just like, look at this. This is the guide. Does it look anything like this? No, it doesn't. It's because you're doing bad effects.
Yeah.
Because it looks real.
Yeah.
The whole thing, worms included, the worms look real. The giant worm with a bajillion teeth that comes out of the sand, the way that the sand vibrate, it looks real.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's proper framing and proper scope, and it's spending the time. It's having a clarity of vision. I think part of why DC and even now Marvel in the last several years is struggling with some of this is because of the level of indecisiveness. I'm oversimplifying, but from what I've read, because of the indecisiveness and how many times they've had to reshoot and re-edit and they're changing script, I don't think they have enough time to make these things look good. I mean, look at Star Wars. Look at the timelines on Star Wars or on Avatar. Things that look much better by and large in the way that this does. Look at the shooting schedule of even the sequel trilogy. They shoot these movies, they're done with principal photography, and then the movie comes out a year later.
Yeah.
Even with the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, 3-year timelines. This was like 2-year timelines on the new ones. And like they were shooting it in like 4, 5, 6 months and then spending like a year making the effects look right. And yeah, doing a reshoot here and there. But pretty much every movie, at least in every like big budget movie, earmark some time and money to do reshoots. It's just they're judicious with it. Like they're not doing it in the middle of the big things with all of it being green screen behind them. Like they're it's very targeted. Like there is a decisiveness, there is an intention behind what they're doing. So with the intention and the decisiveness, they're able to spend a lot of time getting it right before it becomes the final cut. Versus where if you read any of these stories, specifically Marvel in the last 5 years, and certainly I'm sure this same thing is what DC's been guilty of, because we've seen and heard a million types of these stories getting Frankensteined into a movie. But it sounds like they've changing so much shit on the fly.
Yeah.
You could do that in an improv comedy. You could say, hey, that scene didn't work. Let's try it again, and you guys try it with this prompt and go ahead. It's a day of work. It doesn't cost anything. Not anything real. Not anything that matters.
Yeah.
Oh God, we paid for the fucking food services.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, we got to come back and shoot for 6 weeks and try and turn around this CGI in 6 weeks.
Yeah. Ugh. Well, what do you do? Maybe they'll right the ship eventually, but it's just a shame. They've tainted the MCU with what they've been doing lately. So we'll see what happens. We've run pretty long on this episode. Do you have any closing thoughts on Dune Part 2?
Well, kind of in an extrapolation of what we were just talking about, some of these action sequences are really cool, whether it be large scale, small scale. That first real tangible action sequence in the movie where they hit that raid on the mining platform, I thought that was awesome. I don't think I'll ever get tired of the whole gambit of them hiding in the sand and then popping up out of the sand and attacking.
It's so entertaining.
Like it's like what? Like okay, I know they're gonna do it, but how is it gonna work out? Exactly? Yeah. Oh, they did it again. It's awesome.
They did the thing.
The whole strategy,
call that move the Dune.
The whole strategy of the battle that they undid, the way they set it up, the tension and setting up all the Harkonnen troops around, them popping up out of the sand, watching you not knowing what the plan is exactly, and then watching it unfold, showing the tactics and the strategy, how well planned out this is.
Yep.
Watching the plan not go exactly how they want, watching the pivot on the fly, still be able to execute on the goals. I thought it was a really cool way to lay that out, like the visual language of all of that. The execution, how great it looked in service of what we just talked about with CGI. And just some of the inventive ways they showed to do some of this stuff. How many different story beats they communicated. The goals of the Fremen. Paul rising to the expectations of the Fremen. Chani learning how to trust him. Understanding this whole thing. They never talked about it. I know we talked about it. I explained it in the past. they never talked about it in these movies. You cannot penetrate the shields except with that slow, persistent, kinetic energy. And also, you cannot shoot a shield with the laser gun because it creates an atomic reaction, like an atomic bomb going off. So watching the strategy of, we're firing this missile, we need to get the window of it open, watching out that execution of it all, why they don't shoot the laser guns at certain times. They never say it. If you're paying close attention, you see they're shooting up those guns all the time, then they stop shooting them. It's because they have to be aware if they accidentally hit a shield, they're all going to fucking die. So watching all of that communicated without saying those things, the whole thing with them, their systematic plan for firing the missile launcher, the way they need to work in tandem to get the shields open and do all of that sort of thing, I thought it was really cool. Just the level of detail and thought that went into shooting that one scene, which is just dipping a toe into where this movie is going to go.
Yeah. So true. What a blast. Yep. Okay. I can't wait to watch it again. That's all for this week's episode of Flix in the Six. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you have a movie for us to review or nuggets for us to discuss, you can send those requests to flixinthesix@thespintune.com. Tune in next week for more movie and beer goodness. Until then, I'm Anthony Costanzo.
And I'm the Quizat Tatarak.
Thanks for coming out.